Hello, and welcome to PodcastMS, a talk show about a 15-year-old 2D side-scrolling video game, MapleStory. This is episode 4, and this time we'll be discussing the latest and greatest in the private server community, revisiting OSM, and debating the predatory nature of NX hairstyles. Today, our guest is Newbane2, a distinguished member of the developing community. Everybody say hello to Newbane2.
Hello, everyone. Newbane2 from Maple Beta, if anyone remembers that.
Maple Beta was a great server, a very throwback server. It came out just before Maple Global did a while ago. I think that was 2017.
Around there, yeah. We actually... So there was like an owner change. So I think the earliest Maple Beta has ever been around was 2015.
Okay.
Everyone knows today is from 2017. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Is there anything about yourself you really need the viewers to know?
I don't know. I like MapleStory. I like developing MapleStory private servers.
Do you have a favorite class? I feel like we should definitely ask this question for each guest. Do you guys do you have a favorite class to play, Newbane?
Yeah, definitely Night Lord.
Definitely Night Lord. We have a meta slave. All right.
What's yours, Scone? I never asked.
I'm not sure. I don't know what my favorite. I think we talked about it at the end of one of our other episodes. I think pre-BB, it might be a Rand, maybe. I'm not sure.
I'm with Newbane. My favorite's always been Hermit. I like Flash Jump. It's definitely the best skill in the game. And if you could find a private server with unlimited Flash Jump, we could just fly across the map and there's no cooldown on it. It's really...
That's MapleMS, dude. MapleMS doesn't have cooldown on Flash Jump.
Really? They have unlimited Flash Jump?
Mm-hmm.
I gotta start playing MapleMS, guys.
All right.
Anyway, a little bit later on in the show, we are going to, I don't know if this is an official announcement or not, but Newbane has a new project he's working on and wanted to discuss that while he's with us. So we'll come back to that a little bit later, though. Before then, I think we have a clip that we're going to roll for you guys right now.
We created a new intro video for PodcastMS, and we really wanted to show it off to you. Hopefully it ends up being at the right volume, but we'll see.
Cause you got that. 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 Like you. Cause you got that. Something that I need. I like. So give it to me. Cause you got that.
That was it. The best video I've ever didn't make. I had one of my friends make it. But as you can see, that was one of the templates that OSM used for one of their videos, which is why we thought it was funny and turned it into sort of our own PodcastMS video. Unfortunately, part of it was cut off. I'm not exactly sure why, but you still get the idea. Anyway, so the news. Let's get right into it. I think we only have like one new server that was to crop up in between this episode and the last one. There were a couple G-Top ads, but for some reason their visit button wasn't exactly working correctly. And that is DreamMS, which is another V83 based off of HeavenMS. The rates are 422. None of the features aren't exactly ironed out yet. It seems to be pretty early in development. Not exactly sure when that one's going to launch.
Hey guys, just what everybody wanted, another 4 times rates V83. Yeah. Everybody hop on board, get that race going. Who's going to be first to 200? You're going to be a legend in the private server community. Get to 200 first on DreamMS.
If I had a fucking dime for every for every V83 server that's gone into development recently, I'd quit my job. There's so many of them popping up, which is pretty great for the scene as a whole. The more supply there is, the more chance that something good might crop up. Sometimes one can hope. And really, I kind of want to give a miniature shout out to the guy who makes HeavenMS and works on it and has it as open source for people to use and receive active updates for. You know, he's doing God's work to make sure that base sources that people can find and utilize aren't too terrible.
Making sure everybody gets their fix of children's video games.
Yeah. It's
I want to know something interesting about open source private server development.
Sure.
So, do you know Vindictus?
No,
not.
what is that?
Or the other Nexon game?
Ooh.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Vindictus.
oh no, I haven't learned anything about other games.
Well, it's just another game that Nexon hosts. So, they've actually been DMCAing GitHub repos with Vindictus private server sources.
Okay.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Damn. They're fucking out there, bro. Do you think are you surprised when they don't do that for MapleStory, or do you think it's a matter of time, or
I'm not sure exactly when they started doing that, but I saw something about that recently, so who knows? They may actually start
attacking the GitHub?
Exactly, yeah.
How?
mean, fortunately there are other places to like host the code, but it's interesting to think about that.
Speaking of predatory, maybe Nexon should be introduced in that conversation as well. But you know what? That's a conversation for another time.
So, other things in the news, I have opened Scone Top, which is a feature in my personal Discord replicating Gtop. It's pretty sweet. Basically, you hit the upvote button in like the posts, and if there's a server that you want to see on Scone Top, just tell a mod, hey, I want this on Scone Top, and we'll put the link there. And then within our community of PodcastMS, the bakery, my stream, etc., we can sort of see where opinions lie on the current servers that are lined up. You may notice some obvious omissions, and that's because they weren't voted on last month. But if you feel like one should be up there, do it up.
What are the ranks
know.
looking like right now?
Oh, what are the ranks? That's a great question, Malbec. We've got, let's see, at the top of Scone Top, we have Maple Unity at 18 votes. We have Penix at 10. Maple Legends at 7. Crusade at 5. Maple Art Online at 10. I didn't expect Maple Art Online to surpass Crusade in this month of Scone Top, so we're going to have to do some rearranging for next month. Unfortunately, they don't automatically reorder like real Gtop, but we're working on the technology. We've got Ares at 3 votes. OSM at 14 downvotes and 2 upvotes. 15 downvotes, sorry, just updated. Maple MS at 4 upvotes. Maple Saga at 3. Subtle Maple Traits at 3. Maple Destiny at 3. And then Maple Star, which is a server in development currently, has a total of 6 Papegas.
6 Papegas.
Yep. Those aren't exactly upvotes, but it's something kind of like it's now up to 11 Papegas. 12 Papegas. It just keeps going.
How much bias would you say is on that list with Unity on the top, and what else was up there? Maple MS and Penix. I have a hunch that some of the members in that Scone community might be coming from specific areas.
They might.
You know what? As the community grows and more people come in, maybe as PodcastMS spreads its fingers around the private server community, maybe smaller groups of people that aren't from Maple Unity and aren't from Penix will come in and start clicking that up and down vote, and maybe we'll get like a good idea of what's good and what's not good. However, I do think that the forum. OSM getting a down, 14, 15 downvotes, that's
a lot.
Generally reflective of the feeling
bias?
of everybody that plays OSM.
Oh, that's possible. Yeah, it's definitely an open forum. You can vote however you want, up, down, doesn't matter. So, vote as you please.
All right, sounds good. The one thing I wanted to say about DreamMS is that I hadn't heard about this until yesterday when one of my buddies told me about it. And I think I might hop on and try it. They seem to be wanting to play it. And, we'll see. It's just another V83 with 4 times rates. So honestly, nothing special. It doesn't stand out to me that much, but always worth playing if you've got some friends to play with.
Prepare to grind Chimney. That's the best place to go. You and all your friends, 6-man that Chimney. Man. It's going to be a blast.
It'll be some good times in Chimney. Get everybody in a Discord call. Even Chimney could be, honestly. Maple Story is... one of those games, guys. It's a friend game for sure.
I don't know about that. You'd have to find some pretty good friends to convince me to grind Chimney at 4x all the way to level 90.
That's a good point.
Your friends got to be really funny.
I tap out too, man.
All right. So we've got some other news. We've got some meme-worthy events within the community. We have, unfortunately, a super tragic friend breakup as our meme of the week. Let me point to it that way. A civil war between Tice and Quit over what is the best way to nostalgically play MapleStory, and it's definitely a top 10 anime betrayal if I've ever seen one.
All right, explain the sides about this civil war for anybody who's not in the know.
All right, we have two extremely dedicated hardcore players, Quit and Tice, who specialize in third job servers. They were both happily playing together on Penix one day, and then Tice decided that he was sick of Penix because it doesn't have any players, and he goes and leaves the OSM after shit-talking OSM for literal months, and now they're not friends anymore. Tice is banned in Quit's Twitch chat. The drama unfolds.
Oh, man.
It's super tragic.
Just another tale in the Maple story. Friends coming together, splitting apart. They'll be back together again on some other private server, racing their lives away.
One could hope.
Level 200.
You know, no one deserves to lose a friend quite in that manner. What do you guys have a side?
Oh, Quit for sure. Quit has
Team
the best
Quit?
stream on Twitch. I'm 100% on Team Quit. Sorry, Dice. Quit has this hilarious stream. If you guys have never checked it out, you should definitely see it.
I don't think he talks, but
no, he doesn't talk, but it's
still
worth
good.
checking out.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to say I'm Team Quit with this one as well, just because he's a man of his word. When he says, I'm not gonna repeat what he says on stream, but what he says about people who play other servers, you know, he sticks to it. He sticks to his guns. He continues doing the same thing over and over again, and I respect that. I don't respect flippy floppy, you know, kind of behavior where you're saying one thing for months and then you just do the other thing. I can't get behind that.
So respectable. However, Tice is 100% right though. You can't play dead server. You can't play.
Wait, are you Team Tice
with 5
now?
people online? I don't know, man. I'm like, I'm one of those dudes. You know, in the Civil War, you had people switching sides back and forth. You know, you get the bayonets and then you stab somebody on one side.
Oh, you're a fence sitter, huh?
Poke them on the other side. Oh yeah, I'm sitting on the fence on this one, I guess. I don't know. I love Quit, but you know, at the same time, you can't play dead server.
Oh, okay. All right, Newbane, where do you weigh in? Are you Team Tice or Team Quit?
I mean, like logically, I understand where Tice is coming from, but you know, coming from Maple Beta, where literally the same thing happened between Maple Beta and Maple Global, side with Quit.
Oh, we got another member of Team Quit.
Oh,
Let's
man.
go.
It's understandable. Like sometimes, it's not just the quality of the server. The population really does matter.
I can understand that.
A lot of times people will put up with subpar content, subpar quality, subpar administration, I guess, just for the population, just for those numbers.
I mean, the numbers do mean a lot. Like Malbec said on previous episodes, he wants to be playing massively multiplayer games. He doesn't want to be playing minorly multiplayer games.
Or just completely dead, you know, where you're the only one online.
Oof.
Much like a LAN version of
LAN Maple.
LAN party version. Yeah.
Local host Maple Story, where you're playing with yourself on your PC.
Well, the thing that makes it such a meme, though, about this Civil War is that they're both, you know, extremely dedicated MapleStory private server players, and they both just grind hours and hours every day for, it's got to be years at this point. You know, they have so much in common, and there can only be so many of these people on the planet that, you know, they're bound to be friends or rivals. And at the moment, they're rivals, and I think it's hilarious.
They are actually, 2 peas in a pod, for sure.
Truly.
I actually think that when, I'm pretty sure that when TOV went down, it came over to Maple Beta.
Oh,
whereas Quit, I think Quit tried to come over, but...
Yeah, he wasn't really having it.
Yeah.
How long did Maple Beta stay up after the TOV shutdown? It wasn't that long.
Oh, yeah. We got DMC'd like 3 days after.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
It was actually a big fear. There were discussions about the merger. One of the biggest fears was that Nexon is actually hounding Maple Global, like from Global to TOV, right? And there was a lot of talk of like, oh, what if they come for? And I'm not sure, but I think Roar said it was like coincidental that TOV got shut down. but I guess not.
I'm gonna have to weigh in on XTOV staff here representing.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
As a member of staff chat for a specific period of time, I can definitely say that is not the case. That TOV was a coincidence. It was pretty much like, even without the website up, even without, literally, I don't think GTOP was even up. Even they were already having this Nexon was trying to DMCA the source code without any kind of representation online other than Discord. They were already getting DMCA'd. It was definitely not coincidental. This wasn't like, oh, TOV just happens to get DMCA'd. It was definitely coming. Yeah.
Right, and that was actually, so Wacky got DMCA'd, I think like a month or two after, what I think it is that there are people in the Discord groups from Nexon, or someone who, Nexon, like, hey, TOV is still up, or like Maple Global's still up. It's
Nexon
one or the other. Yeah, exactly.
Spies.
That's what I think.
You know what
Nexon
I bet it
spies.
is? I bet it's misusing TV, or zero by divide, or somebody who just absolutely hates private servers.
You think they're creeping in the private server Discords, just hanging out?
Hell bent. Who else has more to benefit from than somebody seeing private servers go down, than somebody who streams live of the live server? It's got to be one of those guys, right? Or somebody from within their community, or Nexon Spy. Who knows?
Do you think we should have them on PodcastMS?
Oh, hell yeah. If we could get them on here, I'd love to have a conversation.
Yeah, I don't think they'd do it, but that'd be funny.
Who knows? It could be a good time.
So, in the news, it appears...
Wait, hold on. Before we get into the news, I do want to touch on beta real quick, Maple beta. It was a real tragic
demise.
Demise of what happened to that server. That was a really fantastic community. It wasn't a very big community, maybe a dozen or so people that were really enjoying the game together. My kind of gameplay, where you're just playing with your friends and everybody hangs out together, playing at the same time, and you're loyal to each other, always in Discord calls. And the private server was very odd and was very custom. No offense to you, Newbane. This is your server that I'm talking about, but it wasn't for everybody, but it was, if anything, a fantastic hangout for that small little group of people. And to see it have an untimely end like that, it was really disappointing.
Yeah, it was pretty hard. But I felt like, the way that they were hounding TOV, it's like just shutting down and rebranding it just seemed like a waste of time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because once you're connected and tied to what they're sort of hounding after, it seems futile almost.
Oh, I'm getting a knock on the door. Oh shit! Wait. Oh, just kidding.
Nexon.
Okay, so it appears that the server ZachMMS has been defeated by the hackers. They have prevailed. We mentioned last episode that there was a Discord created specifically to redistribute hacks created by community members in order to effectively, I wouldn't say it's kind of like a terrorist kind of, but basically it's like, we demand better out of ZachMMS. Until these exploits are fixed, we're going to make sure that they run rampant.
What types of exploits they are?
Tell us.
I mentioned, I don't want to go there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them.
Like top 3, I guess.
Top 3. I know they had a pretty good dupe, something to that effect. Oh yeah, they had, I'm not sure what a G9 hack is, but they have a Final Cut hack, cheat engine, scripts and hacks and whatnot, and then they had one big dupe. So
that's enough to take down a server.
They had more than enough to get to make the server pretty unplayable.
Well, I'd act shocked by the breaking news that an RM0 server has gone down, but let's be honest here. We're going to get another one of those in a couple months for sure. I don't know who's going to be working on it, but those things, they're like zombies. You shoot them down and they come right back up.
Well, this time, unless they fix those, I think it's going to be apparently obvious without, they're not going to be able to relaunch without that kind of stuff fixed. So in a way, they did it for the betterment of the server, you know, taking it down to ensure that they receive a better product, which has been pretty overdue.
All right, let me go all conspiracy theory on you guys real quick. What if the guys that were exploiting and holding the server ransom with the bugs are the people that are wanting to put up their own server, huh?
Oh, you think
they're going to take it and they're going to put up their own with the bugs fixed? Think about that. Who is it, guys?
I think it's
November.
I think it's November. I think it's MS.
$10,000 to fix a dupe bug.
Was it 10,000?
I think it was five. Yeah, there was a $5,000 bounty on it.
Oh, wow. Well, my point is, like, why don't they just, I mean, either fix the exploits themselves or just hire someone to fix them? I mean, I don't think it can be that difficult.
So you're thinking
G9
that
hack is.
There's more to it? You think that maybe they just, who knows? It could really be anything if the server has the possibility of being fixed, but they have it, you know, shut down anyway. Then maybe there's more to it. Maybe there's a lot that we don't know here.
Maybe.
Alrighty.
What do you think would be the situation? I mean, you're a developer. You know, if there's a bug that you can't fix, right? And you're doing everything that you can try and fix it. It's not working out. And your only option left is to either shut down the server or pay some absorbent amount of money to fix the issue and get rid of it. What do you think you would do in that situation?
Well, I don't know. I don't know MS, so I don't know if they're like, run by real developers or just by people managing a server. Maybe they hire some developers here and there to get it working. At least for me, if I can't fix something, I would temporarily disable it. Mm-hmm. Again, it really depends what it is. I mean, with the dupe, ways you can track it down without necessarily knowing how it's done. If they log data, essentially, mm-hmm. find out where and how these items are coming in game, or at least roughly around how or where, and just disable mm-hmm. that content temporarily, and just kind of try to figure out what it is. Or, good idea, roughly where, what the exploit is. You could just monitor certain packets, certain actions, detect this.
Right.
Yeah, and
so it really boils down to how experienced the developers are. I think that's what it is.
I think the general consensus is that the person currently running it is not a developer, and that they don't want to release the source code to anyone who can develop for fear of it being leaked and ran by someone else. So that's kind of why things aren't being fixed, is because if they release it to a developer for it to get fixed, that guy's probably just going to run off and do it himself because, competition.
What options does that person have now other than shut down the private server? Sounds that must be the only option.
That's the option currently being done, is just shut down. We'll see what happens, though.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. Well, we got thousands of people, I guess, that are waiting to see what happens because everybody's wanting to get that rate back on like they always do. So
yeah,
we'll see. Where are they at in the meantime?
It's a tough situation if they don't have a developer who, even if they don't know what it is, maybe someone could give them a hint or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Who knows? Well, R.I.P. to Zakum. Hope somebody got a Zakum helmet out of it anyway. Sorry guys, too much.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be anytime quite soon.
Downgrade to a V83 with Wiz edits. No, sorry, V62 with Wiz edits.
Yeah, just remove the content, take the source, make it, some lower version, and then those exploits might not exist, right?
The players wouldn't exist either. Shit. I don't know if any of those post-Big Bang players would want to come down to a V83 or V62.
There are some requests in chat, Newbane, for you to turn your sensitivity on your... So if you go to your Discord settings and make it so your mic sensitivity, you go to the cog and then voice and audio.
So up it?
Yeah, well, it'll actually... So the bar that's probably turning green when your voice is going, it's probably automatically set. So I would go ahead and turn automatic off and then adjust it so that the bar is lower, so the threshold at which your voice is detected happens more, and then you won't cut out as much.
What about now?
Seems pretty good to me.
Yeah, you sound fine. Should we get into our first major topic of the day?
I think we should. We've got.
All right.
So we had some feedback from our episode on OSM about how, we weren't really what the topics that we talked about weren't fair because we weren't talking to staff and asking the questions, and something along the lines of, without staff being on the podcast, what you're saying doesn't really carry weight. The things you're mentioning, the topics you're talking about, it's all speculation. You're just straw manning. These aren't real arguments. This is based upon logical fallacy. So OSM had their choice of rebuttal, right? We had, I saw comments in Discord where staff commented on the podcast we were running. We watched bits and pieces of it. A lot of what they're saying is, misinformation or lies or whatever. So basically, they said that any misconceptions and everything else that people had questions with would be answered in OSMcast, which is their attempt of talking to the community and sort of addressing issues that players had and questions about the server, where it's going, why they decided with certain things, why they make the choices that they do.
So just before you go on here, let's backpedal a little bit.
Sure.
If anybody hadn't seen the OSM podcast, the one that we did, not the one that they did, basically what we had done was we did our best to get the staff members of that server onto our podcast so we could talk to them about the issues that they were having with the server. At the time, it was very laggy. They were having a lot of big issues, and the player base was very frustrated. And we wanted to provide, this was only our second episode, we wanted to provide them with a nice platform for them to defend themselves, give their output for anybody that wanted to, play the server so they could hear them out. And what OSM's staff decided to do was opt on to the podcast up until just a few days before we were ready to do it. And then they decided to bounce out and didn't want to do it with us anymore, and instead announced that they would be hosting their own show and not coming on to ours. So we went ahead and did our show anyway, and we discussed OSM. We gave our opinions on it. We had a guest on that had his own opinions about OSM. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We had some pretty negative opinions about the server and the way that it was run. And we did our best to give them a fair analysis. I think if you wanted to go back and watch our podcast about them, you would see that we were doing our best, I think, to be as fair as we could. But without them coming on to defend themselves, a lot of the negative feedback that we got for our show was that they weren't there and they couldn't rebuttal to anything that we were saying. So fast forward a couple weeks after our show, they decided they would they make their own. They went on to Twitch and put on the OSM cast, and the OSM cast was more or less a rebuttal to our show, and that is basically what we wanted to talk about here. Everything that they discussed and some of the things that we interpreted from their show and maybe what they misinterpreted from ours. So if you had anything further, go ahead, Scone.
Yeah, it was what I wanted. Like what we wanted, from OSM was an answer. We had questions. As a private server community, why are you doing this? Why is it done like this? Many players felt frustrated, like the staff wasn't properly communicating with the player base, right? So them doing OSM cast is kind of what we wanted in a way. We would have preferred for them to be on our podcast. We were approached by them originally to be on the podcast by two different staff members, and then they later decided to pull out of it. So we were naturally disappointed. We didn't, some unanticipated results. I thought Malbec was going to be a little more pro OSM considering that he played it. It sort of, we want the podcast to be a conversation, a discussion. We don't really want it to be three dudes all agreeing over the same thing. Kind of creates a more or less circle jerk, negative circle jerk about what's going on rather than insightful discussion, which wasn't really what we wanted, but that's kind of how it panned out to be. So to get rid of some criticisms that we had on the day of the stream was that some reasons why they wouldn't appear on the podcast.
One thing that we should mention, though,
Sure.
is we and not just us, but everybody was not getting any information out of the OSM administration. They were being very, very quiet and not communicative, not responding to anything from the community, giving very few Discord announcements, forum announcements, and a lot of people were frustrated with how things were being run at the time because the server was not going smoothly. There was a huge amount of downtime and lag.
It's actually a lot better now. If that
it
means
is a lot
anything.
better now. it is a lot better now. However, at the time, this would have been the perfect opportunity, and for them to pass up on it and to kind of go their own way was very disappointing. And I think that might have had a little bit of influence on our show.
Yep. And one of the sort of, I guess it was like an excuse prepared. So why should their staff appear on our show if we can't, control chat, for instance? That was one of the big things listed. Like you could be, we could be professional and we could treat them, correctly and do, all the niceties. We had everything planned out. Well, not everything planned out per se, but we had all the main topics and topics to avoid, topics for discussion. And we had an active back and forth with the staff about what we think should be talked about on the podcast. But one of the big things that people listed as a reason for why they shouldn't come on the podcast was because chat would not be moderated appropriately.
Right.
However, if you go back,
not just chat, but they wanted to control all variables.
Yeah.
This is their words, not ours. And they included chat in this, but they wanted to control the questions that were being asked. They wanted to control the discussion 100% and everything that was being said. And if you go and watch the OSM cast, the show that they did, that's exactly what they did. They controlled everything except,
well, they did.
And I think this is what we are getting at. They
did
not
not control chat at all.
They didn't moderate
chat. Went completely unmoderated. People were asking absurd shit, all the time, constantly shit talking, the staff, the people who are on the show. And I found that
this kind of sounds like.
What's it sound like?
A movie, The Interview, where like the reporter had all these questions. I don't remember who he was interviewing, but like one of the main characters was interviewing someone from North Korea, and they had like all these questions prepared, and they couldn't ask any of them because they're like, "Oh, can we see the questions first?" And like ask. And essentially, they like threw out like 90% of the questions and only left like 2 or 3 like very neutral questions. Essentially what I'm trying to say is like what's with this like authoritarian atmosphere that they wanted, where they wanted to control every single possible factor. Like they can't handle criticism. Like even if there's a troll in the chat asking just like some stupid questions, you could just ignore it, or you could just shrug it off.
That's kind of what they did. They just kind of ignored the chat more or less, even though it was rampaging out of control. I just found it extremely ironic that was like the reason a lot of people pointed towards why they wouldn't want to be on PodcastMS, when on their own OSM cast, it just ran rampant.
Ironic, hypocritical, and self-defeating. If we're being
maybe they felt like
I just felt like bringing that up.
Maybe they felt like it would be like hostile on PodcastMS.
Yeah, maybe what they were expecting was only the people that played the server and liked the server would be coming on to their show. But that is not how it ended.
Did not happen.
If you guys watched the OSM cast, I think that's what they call it, not to be confused with the OSM podcast that we did. The OSM cast, their official one that they did, was it was not a podcast. And I've discussed this off stream a couple times with a few people, but it wasn't really a podcast. It was an odd show. It was very strange in the way that it was formatted. The host, if you want to call him that, was a dude in a wig who was just reading off a couple questions. I think they had maybe 10 questions total or something like that. And between each question that the host would ask, ASDF would go on a very long monologue about, it seemed to be really scattered and not very, focused. They kept going off on tangents. None of the points that I think they wanted to hit on were directly hit. The things that we brought up in our show were not directly addressed, although I think that's what they were going for. It wasn't exactly what was accomplished. And throughout all that, it was just a very awkward thing to watch because the guy that was sitting there in the wig wasn't necessarily paying attention to what ASDF was saying on the show. He seemed to be getting distracted. At one point, he was getting up, and putting lotion on or something like that, picking things off the shelves, playing with his Pikachu doll, and, generally not even listening to the responses. So I'm wondering what their intent was there, if it was, if they got everything done that they wanted to get done, if they finished it up and they put a nail in it and said, all right, job well done, we did it. I don't know if they would consider their show a success, but after finishing it and watching it, it looked like a catastrophic failure to me personally.
Why did they feel the need to do it in podcast style? Like, why couldn't they just, make a prepared statement?
Yeah, that's one thing that we wanted to discuss as well. It seemed very unnecessary to do it, what they call a talk show, when pretty much everything that was discussed there could have been done in a forum post or on a Discord announcement. I don't think there was any new news except for a couple features that they released there at the end. But other than that, I feel like the entire thing was a waste of time and honestly very boring. I don't know if anybody else felt the same way that I did, but I got a few Residence Libras in the chat when I was in there.
I mean,
but what I was trying to get at is, like, do you think that, like, they were trying to copy PodcastMS? Like, do you think
I don't
they were trying
think
to be
so.
derivative?
You don't think
I don't
so?
think they were trying to copy us. I think what they were trying to do was copy what it is that we're doing, which is reaching a wider audience, trying to get people from all over the private server community in and get a few more eyes on their server. I think that's what their goal was. I don't think they were trying to copy directly, although the idea of doing a talk show was probably directly influenced from us.
But in the forum post, they said everyone was asking for the OSM talk show.
I didn't see anybody.
Do you not palpitate the masses demanding for this service? Do you not feel it?
And
Are they still doing it?
They
did one.
They said that this is going to be a regular thing. It was more supposed to be kind of like an introductory episode, kind of like Malbec and I did with our first episode of PodcastMS. And then they said that they wanted it to be more like a discussion after that episode, but I really don't understand why the first episode can't also be a discussion. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Why you would do it in a live format? Why you would do it in a live format and have it not be an active discussion with the people who are watching?
Absolutely. And having the chat just go wild, like you were talking about, and not having any moderation on it, although that was the variable that they wanted to control most. It, like I said, very hypocritical and self-defeating.
So if you look back on it, if that's not the variable they were worried about, that means we're the variables. Yeah,
well, we knew that to begin with. They had there's some history between Sconed and the guy that was doing, ASDF, and I think the reason that he cited to us that they didn't want to come on our show was for personal reasons. They did not. This was their official reason for backing out of the podcast.
It makes
PodcastMS.
sense. And
was that they had some personal history.
It makes sense because, that does exist. But at the same time, why would you approach me to do it if that's the case?
Yeah.
It's like, if that's there, why would you debate me?
Right.
I shouldn't be debated. It feels wrong to be debated.
It does. I mean, getting dragged in and then debated didn't feel good. What did you think about the OSM cast? Before we do want to go over the things that were discussed there, we want to talk about some of the things that ASDF did monologue about, and we'll get into that in just a second. But Newbane, did you watch the OSM cast?
I actually didn't see it.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind.
You were missing out.
I saw like OSM podcast.
Oh, the one we did?
But I didn't see...
God, this is so confusing.
You didn't miss much, dude. Don't worry about it.
I'm saying, right, so just to clarify, I did not see the OSM cast, the one where ASDF was on, but I saw like half of the one that you guys did, the OSM podcast.
Oh, okay. All right, so we have some video. Well, I'm not going to show the video, but we have some audio clips of the OSM cast where they talked about, we weren't going to watch the entire thing. I had a lot of requests for Malbec and I to watch it live. That does sort of interfere with some TOS stuff. If people wanted to report our channel and be like, you can't be, rewatching this content live or, restreaming it live, especially would have been a big no-no. If they decided that they wanted to be mean about it, they could easily
We would love to do that. Don't get us wrong.
Yeah.
We'd love to have the clip on and really just go into every single detail and pause and discuss what it is they're talking about. However, in the Twitch terms of service, you can't rebroadcast somebody else's content, and that's what's stopping us there.
That directly, right? You can YouTube videos and stuff like that are more acceptable, but a direct restream and reaction doesn't really bode well if we were to get flagged or something like that. So
Right.
we wanted, I wanted to avoid restreaming, and I was actually busy that day, so I couldn't. But that wasn't something we were willing to do. But we are willing to take clips that actually matter, where they're talking about different aspects of the server and sort of the points to take away from it, some things that they did right, kind of, and things they did wrong.
So before we jump into this, which we're about to do, is I wanted to say this, is after we discuss the OSMcast and all the things and the topics that were discussed on that from ASDF and the host. I don't think I know the host's name, but afterwards we're going to be having in-depth discussion about RNG Cosmetics, just in general across private servers. Mm-hmm. So if ASDF's voice puts you to sleep, we'll snap you awake at the end of it, and we'll move on to the next project.
Okay. And I'm also going to need, like we were having, I want to make sure that the audio is loud enough, so make sure to let me know if this is too quiet or not while I go over these clips.
And being satisfied that you're playing the Maple story of the past. It's not a server where we have major changes to the gameplay.
By the way, hope everybody's having a fantastic day. Happy mapling, guys.
And these GMS
what a familiar voice.
I'm talking about are monster drops are a huge one. Almost every server uses like a made-up formula for how their items drop, where essentially, like, if you kill a slime and the slime can drop a sword, it's possible that when you kill this monster, it doesn't even give you the chance to drop that item, which is completely messed up and wrong. We're using the best, most known formula we could that replicates GMS. So every drop is, sorry, that was my dog. Every drop is authentic. Every time you kill a monster, you get a chance to get an item.
Okay, so that's the first part of that clip. Basically, he's talking about how OSM's drop formula is different from the majority of other private servers. And luckily, we have Newbane on the cast, who's worked with Odin sources, which are the majority of private servers. I've also talked to people who have used HeavenMS, which is quickly becoming the most used source in the community. We see V83s popping out of people's assholes everywhere, So I'd say that's probably by far the most publicly used source. And I couldn't find anyone who could say that that's how the drops worked on their server.
Did you actually just quickly restate what he said about the drops, because it was like really quiet,
okay,
at least on my end?
So basically what he's saying is that there's a pool of drops, right? Mm-hmm. And then there is a role for which, I think it's, if I remember correctly, it's like a certain subset of drops. So like, let's say there's 12 drops and you kill the mob. There's like 6 to 8 drops that effectively are chosen, and then the percentages are rolled on the chosen ones instead of each percentage being rolled on each thing that the mob can drop.
So if a mob was to drop, say, a glove for attack scroll, if it had a bunch of drops, say there's 20 different things that it could drop, there's a chance that when it does drop an item, only 6 to 8 of those potential 20 items would even be selected for the possibility of it to be dropped. So like you were saying earlier, if there was
sounds wrong.
1 in 20 chance of something, 1 in 2,000 chance of something being dropped, it's actually significantly higher than that. Is that right?
I don't know if it's significantly higher, but it's different. It's okay. Definitely, it's higher. I'm not sure how significant, but essentially from everyone I've talked to, none of their drop formulas actually operate like that. So unless yours does.
Hold on, let me just something. So as far as I can tell, none of the drop rates. I have the I know what they're using as the drop table, assuming that they're still using that. And as far as I can tell, there is no indicator of like drop tier is just like it tells you the type of drop it is. Like, is it like money, an item? It gives you a probability, and it gives you like a min max, like how much of that item. It gives you like a expiration date or something like that. But essentially, it gives you a rate.
I think he's mostly talking about source sided, not specifically like database sided for the percentages where somehow there is something in the source that is selecting only a certain.
I'm not saying it's not
period
possible
of it.
to do it. I'm just saying that there is no, as far as I can tell, there's no like tier ranking. So like with RuneScape, they have like a rare table, or like a rare drop table. They have like some other type, like maybe unique drop table. You can tell I don't see any distinction between like the types of drops. This is the first time I've heard of
I think, like, if you don't mind me interrupting, I don't think it's like tiers. I think it's the set and then it's random, where it's not necessarily a tier, but only like 6 items out of 8 are selected, but it's a random 6 each time, and then the statistic is rolled on each of them. Anyway, the point is we're kind of going off into a tangent. I don't think it works like that on your server. I don't think it works.
It doesn't work like that. No.
It does. I don't think it works like that on any other server that I can think of. And from the people I've asked, it doesn't operate like that. So the point being that this is how it works on every other server is misinformation, essentially.
So not only is it wrong in this instance, he claims that there is a precedent here that he is breaking. And that is not just wrong in this instance, but it's wrong categorically. This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, the
so
idea...
He said, hold on. So he said that others, like most other sources, do what he just said?
Yes. That is the claim being made, is that most other private servers are using some sort of made-up drop formula that randomly selects it. Well, I mean,
okay, so the rates are made up for most private servers.
The drop table rates are, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But the system he's talking about isn't that, right?
Absolutely, you're right.
It's because like you can change the base drops, and that's something entirely. Like, you could say we have the correct drop rate for this scroll, which they then doubled, so now it's incorrect. But that's not the point. You know, that every drop feels authentic is because we finally figured out the formula that other servers are missing, and there is no formula. There are just rates, and if you have the rates, you have the rates. If you don't, you don't.
Right. So I think I know what he's talking about, actually. So OdinMS, I think the way they calculate the percentage is they add up, like, quote-unquote rate of the item. They just do like a weighted average. So like an item has like a chance of like 20, for example.
Okay.
You add up all of the like values essentially, and then you just divide it to get a percentage. I think that's what OdinMS does.
Okay.
They don't use like a fixed like percentage per se.
Okay, so it's like they add up the items, and instead of 1 out of 20, it's like 6 out of 20. Would it be more like that?
No.
Okay.
No, it's like it's just a weighted average. So like I give an item a value of 6, like a drop rate of 6, right?
Yep.
And I have like 10 of them, right? Like 10 items with a value of 6. So they add up all 10 items to get 60. The pretty much just like pick one number in that range, essentially.
Oh, okay. So let's say you have a scroll, right? And in this weighted average, it would have a significantly lower rate than obviously like an etc. item, and it gets added into this number, and then it's divided.
I think so. Maple Beta didn't do that. We used a different drop table, which actually had rates, which is how GMS did it.
Okay, so
as a developer, where do you think he's getting this idea from, that there's only a set amount of items of the 20 or so that will be dropped at one time? Does that make any sense to you?
Makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Do you think he's just confused about some other thing and he just didn't say what he meant to say correctly?
So
possibly, because there are drop limits. So like a regular mob can drop maybe like exact limit, but like a regular monster could drop like a certain amount of items, and then like a boss can drop like 10 or 15 items. So it'll only select up to like 6 drops, or like up to 10 or 15, something like that. So it's a limit, but it's not a talking about.
You don't think this limit on the monster itself could possibly hinder you from rolling the 1 in 20k for the scroll?
I think it can, yeah. It's possible.
It's possible.
But just like extremely high a chance that it wouldn't, right? Like killing a snail, well, snail's not a great example because they don't have a lot of drops, but say a wild boar, right, that has just a bunch of different drops. The odds of you killing one boar and it dropping every single one of those is extremely low, right?
That's pretty low.
There would be, you're saying that there's a cap on how many max would happen.
Yeah, so in most cases, unless your drop rate's like 100x or something like that, where like all 6 or 8, like unless you're getting like 6 to 8 drops, like again, I don't remember the exact number since Maple Beta didn't use that, but unless you get like the cap, it wouldn't affect it. Like at all.
That's probably the cap that he's talking about then. Just the extremely low chance that more than 6 items would drop from one mob. He's removed that cap. I think that might be what he was trying to articulate.
Maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
Because
I guess we'll never know.
That's the only thing that makes sense to me, is right, because if it's, you can't, it's like, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense.
Well, this is going to be a recurring theme. This is just our first point.
None of it makes sense.
Okay, well, let's accept that we don't really know what's going on with what he said.
Okay.
So move on to the next one. Another example of him not communicating effectively.
All right, so we've got, so this
one, check and get back to you, because I mean, if he's using so Osam's using an Odin base, so I can definitely go and check.
So if that
don't do it right now, but later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So the Odin base has a cap on how many items can drop at once from a mob. However, we are of the consensus that 99.9% of the time this will not affect an equip or scroll drop.
Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty much. Yeah.
Unless you're like 1000x drop or something like that.
Yeah. So it's pretty much, it's a weirder way of doing it than what would be like the cleanest way of implementing it, right? That you have gone and redone on a server before, but it's a
moot point at best and extremely far from being a feature.
We're not reinventing we're reinventing the wheel here. It's like the wheel's working. It's not actually, there isn't more authenticity happening because there is no relevant change that's happening.
All right. You got the next clip?
All right. The next clip, you guys mentioned it was quiet. I'm going to try. Okay. Windows Media Player does not go very loud. All right. All right. It's all the way up, and try to squint your ears and hear this one.
And again, all this ties back to how rewarding everything is. The drops are really rare. When you get that item F8, if you kill a monster and 10 items drop out, then you don't really care. It's not special. So that's monster drops. And I think everyone's familiar with how hard it is to get items at this point. But we did change some things around, like increase the scroll drop rate, just to give players more of an incentive to rolls, for example. In terms of the monster spawning algorithm, this is also a huge one. And again, basically every other server gets this wrong. And essentially how other servers do it is that if you stand on one platform and keep killing monsters on that platform, they'll just keep respawning on that specific platform. So that means you can just literally AFK there in one spot and never have to move around the map. So the GMS-like monster spawn algorithm is the one where monsters can spawn all over the map, and eventually if you stay on one platform, they'll stop spawning on your platform and they'll be, on the next platform or somewhere else on the map. So you essentially always have to move around, and you have to clear the whole map in order for the monsters to spawn again.
Okay, so it's, for my guests here who may not have been listening in on the stream for double voice reasons, brief explanation of what happened is, the spawns, or for the viewers who couldn't hear it, basically what he's saying is that he said basically all servers get this wrong. So
a huge amount. No,
all of them but me.
Yeah, okay.
You can sit in one spot and you can constantly hit mobs. You don't have to move at all. You don't have to move around the map. and yeah, you
So
just
anyone
sit
watching
in one spot.
Right. Anyone watching ever been to Hennessy's and you're killing snails on the bottom or slimes on the second platform, and you kill all of them, but nobody else is in the map, so they stop spawning? Is that normal for you guys? I'm pretty sure that's pretty normal, and it happens not just on global, but on all private servers too. For him to say that that happens on all private servers, that you could just stand in one spot and mobs keep spawning on you no matter what, and that's a problem that he fixed. That is so absurd and so ridiculous. It makes no sense. Every private server, not just private server, pretty much every rendition of MapleStory ever, once the spawn runs out on one platform, you got to move around a little bit. It's something that's so elementary. You learn when you're 9 years old. I don't know where he got this idea from. It's such a false notion. And to say that it's a feature, it's a huge stretch. It doesn't make any sense.
So we have a comment in chat that says that 50% of servers are like this and 50% are not. The one asterisk I want to put on this is Chimney. Chimney is the one map I can think of where you literally do not have to move. All of the mobs come to you. So if you were playing B83 servers and Chimney is your example, it does not count. The map is busted, and even with the correct formula implemented, due to like auto aggro and whatever the hell is going on in that map, it does not equate to the rest of the game. And if you have any examples of those servers where this was not the case, where you could literally stand at the bottom of HHD1 and continuously kill snails for the rest of eternity, please do give them. I am very interested, because I myself have never, ever, 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 ever played a private server where that was the case.
Same. And with Ghost Ship, Ghost Ship as well, but Chimney being the notable exceptions, that's not even something that you need to worry about on his server, because it's a version 1 server.
Yeah.
Those aren't even in the game.
The GS2, even GS2, if you heal on the stairs in every server that I've played, you will not be hitting the max amount of monsters at any point. Eventually, you'll run out of mobs and you'll be healing in place. This is how people catch botters. You're sitting there healing in place. Staff knows what's up, and staff likes camping Chimney because they know that's where people go. And if you are going to farm, GS2, if you are going to farm GS2 effectively, you still have to go in a circle and collect all the mobs and actually hit them to farm them. So the notion that happens on servers is pretty ridiculous. I do have a clip of me killing something on a server and then moving down and then, showing that that's how it works. I don't really feel the need to show this. I feel like
that's so unnecessary. Did you?
It feels really
unnecessary.
While I was doing it, I was like, "This will be genius, right? We can show people that this is actually how MapleStory works." But everyone in chat knows how MapleStory works. I don't feel the need to actually show it.
If you want, I can put it to rest. So I just pulled up just a generic OdinMS version 62 on a just like some GitHub link.
Yep.
So the way OdinMS does it is they just they have spawn points, right, which they get from the actual the game data.
Yep.
And each spawn point has like a timer, and they basically every time that the respawn worker runs, they just randomize. They randomize the order of the spawn points, like through which they're going to loop through. Point, the cooldown on the spawn point, basically, like if it has not recently spawned a mob, there. So no, you cannot stand on one platform and just keep killing.
You're cutting out a little bit. Maybe adjust your sensitivity towards.
I think it's my mic. Is it good now?
Yeah, it seems fine.
Okay, so just long story short, it randomizes the spawn point every time. The only thing that they are checking is to make sure that it's not spawning at the same exact spawn point every single time.
Okay.
That's it.
So if you're
from a developer standpoint, what do you think what is he thinking when he's saying this? And
I know what he's thinking.
The feature.
I know what he's thinking. He took the spawn algorithm from engineered from what?
You cut out again. It was reverse engineered from
so Roar copied the spawn algorithm from TOV.
Okay.
Which was reverse engineered from Sleek, which is pretty much GMS. The actual algorithm is very slightly similar, but it's different. They take into account like spawn position.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's like a cluster of monsters, they won't spawn it there. They'll find like, but that's like the biggest difference. Like the OdinMS respawn algorithm is, I guess, close enough.
Yeah, so it's a more accurate version of the same thing, but the difference is slightly noticeable, but negligible at best.
Right, and the notion that it just spawns at the exact same spot like over and over, that's just not true.
Okay.
The only way that would be true is if the like spawn rate is just like off the charts.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can tweak the spawn rate.
Gotcha.
I'm just reading the chat.
Chat's roasting you right now. I suggest even if you think it is your mic, I suggest lowering the sensitivity on Discord almost all the way to the bottom for the threshold at which your voice has to cross for it to be detected.
Thank you for the input, though. I mean, it's really valuable having a developer come in here, the straight talk about how the sources work, and even giving us the perspective. You know, we're criticizing another developer here. So for one developer to criticize another, it's not just hearsay, it's not just speculation. He actually knows what he's talking about, and he's going into the code and he's pulling this stuff up right now. And you know, for him to come in here and be on our show in a way that ASDF didn't and decided to not do, I think that also illustrates probably one of the reasons why he didn't want to come in on our show, was because he might not actually have answers to the questions that we give him, because if this is speculation, he might just not know a lot more than we give him credit for.
Well, it's the claims that are being made, right? The claims that are, this is how every other server operates, is incorrect, and we are doing it correct. And it doesn't seem that the grasp on the base source which people are using, it doesn't seem that his conception of that is correct. And Newbane,
I think it's possible. I think it's also possible he's just like phrasing it slightly wrong. I mean, the spawn rate. I mean, not the spawn rate. The spawn algorithm. He's only saying that because he's using the TOV spawn algorithm.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's the idea that other people are doing it wrong, and more or less that it's. I'm fine with, let's say he said we took a spawn algorithm that we think is more authentic and it works better than other available ones. But to say that, to make
keyword took,
to take wide sweeping, this is how everyone else does it, and this is just wrong. The way you were doing it is incorrect. You've never seen their source code. You've never seen, the other top server's source code, and apparently haven't played on them either, because it's simply not how it operates the way it's being described. Right. So it's the wide sweeping claims against the other people who are developing, just like you are, and are making servers just like you to try to create an experience for all of us to enjoy, and to make wide sweeping claims that they're all, what if they're using the BMS leak? What if
publicly available?
Yeah, it's like anyone can go and look at it. If you are a top server, chances are you've taken a look at the BMS leak. I don't feel like this is too out there to assume that other people haven't noticed it, and that just because those sources are built on publicly available ones that might have it slightly incorrect but negligibly noticeable, the fact that you're saying that these other people are just doing it wrong, or that they haven't implemented some sort of fix like based off the BMS leak, is kind of insulting a little bit. Yeah. It's kind of condescending towards the other people who are in the MapleStory community, that everyone else is just too goddamn stupid to look at the BMS leak and look at us. We're OSM. We looked at the BMS leak. We found the correct formulas and we implemented them. Smack. We got them.
Disappointing.
More like looked at.
And it's
global source, but
it rubs me the wrong way. It rubs me the wrong way that
it rubs everybody the wrong way.
The wide sweeping claim.
This is something that at this point in the show, I know I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but something that I want to be really clear on, because we did get a little bit of pushback from how we were handling OSM before, and what I'd like to say to any devil's advocates for ASDF, or how OSM is run, or just really any private server that's not poorly run, who might be saying, oh, well, at least he's trying, at least he's doing his best, he's keeping the private server community alive by putting these sort of things up. This is what we kind of do the podcast for. What we want to do with this, what our goal is, just generally speaking, is calling out the bullshit when we see it and making sure that everybody has the correct information. We don't always have the correct information, and I apologize if we don't. This is why we bring on people that know what we're talking about, like Newbane, and people that are highly experienced at playing the game and dedicated grinders like Cheater in our last episode. It's the reason why we want to have more people that come on, so we have accurate information. What we want to do as a general goal for the podcast is to make private servers better. We want to heavily criticize anybody who's doing things wrong and make sure that everybody has the right information. Sorry if I keep talking in loops here, but that's what we want. We just want people to correct their problems and learn from their mistakes, so these things don't keep happening over and over again like they have for about a decade or so.
Yep.
Can I just say one thing about ASDF?
Yeah.
I don't know. What is it?
You can say whatever you want.
Yeah, you can say whatever you want. Just go ahead.
Right, so he's not like a horrible dev or anything. Like he's fine. My only issue with what he does is he doesn't credit where he gets certain things from.
Yeah.
And that's really the only thing that kind of like, well, it's not the only thing, but that's the only like thing that actually matters to me, at least, in terms of like what bothers me about like what he does.
Sure.
Yeah, and I have
probably not just you, but a lot of developers. People that have actually put in the work and made code and developed for the MapleStory private server community. If you are putting up a server on other people's work and you're not giving the credit where it's due, or you're claiming that it's your own, or you're just handling the entire thing very poorly and making it look bad upon the people that did code that work, it really just puts a huge blemish on private servers in general, and it makes all the developers mad at you. Would you say that that's pretty accurate? Is there a general consensus that when this happens among the developing community in the private servers, that this is highly frowned upon? I don't think that you're the only one that feels that way.
I would say so, honestly. And what makes things worse is that like sometimes when you get a message asking you for help with something, I don't think he's actually done that to me, but I've had people do that where like they ask for a fix or they ask for help on something. They're not like, oh, thanks, such and such. And this is not like all developers. Like if you look at Rage Zone, which is it's like a MapleStory development forum. Always credits like as many people as they can,
Right.
even if they contributed in the slightest, most trivial way. Beta. So when we first like launched in 2017, we reused some of the NPC scripts from Maple Global from their beta, basically, right? Permission to use them and whatever. I credited Wacky, I credited Exile, and everyone part of that team, and it was on the front page of the website, on the update notice. Just essentially what I'm trying to say is credit is very important, and it's almost insulting when you see someone like passing off someone else's content or someone else's like contribution as their own.
And
Which is pretty much OSM in a nutshell, right? Almost everything from that server, I mean, from the source to new features, is taken from somebody else.
Well, I think they have done some original work with possibly with the widescreen functionality.
Okay.
But it's pretty much the point, right? Is when you're taking or using things from publicly available areas, it's important to credit who made it.
Absolutely.
If you go to like when you open the game, like a lot of people say, well, you're just stealing MapleStory from Nexon. Nexon's pretty properly credited in MapleStory clients. You see, when you fucking open the game, it says Nexon. It says Wizard at the bottom at the login screen. A lot of these V83 servers coming out, it rubs me the wrong way that they never actually dedicate that say, we're using Heaven MS. You should be proud to use Heaven MS. This guy is putting in a lot of time and effort, and a lot of other people have helped him along the way. Like Kronos in chat offered a fix to Heaven MS. He is a contributor to Heaven MS, and his work lives on in all these other servers that just simply won't even take the time to say, hey, we're running this off Heaven MS. It's made by this.
I just don't want to beat a dead horse too much. Plagiarism is bad. I mean, which is kind of an ironic thing coming from a private server community. And I don't want to, like I said, beat the dead horse too much. So what is your next topic?
Next topic.
Your next clip
will be a clip talking about enabling the content for new areas. I don't really need to play this one. Essentially, it's them describing why each patch takes so long. Why it takes.
I think this is a big one.
Why it takes 3 to 4 weeks for them to come out with a new area, and it is largely for players to experience the shift in the meta, and because implementing new areas is not simply a flip of a switch.
So anybody who's still playing OSM, this is where you should probably tune in, because I feel like this is probably the most relevant to you right now.
So
why the content is coming so slow is what we want to talk about here, and what their reasoning was, and think about their reasoning.
So the first one, the major reason that they list is the experience and the shift in the meta. It's not, they mentioned that things aren't simply done overnight, which is partly true. There are a couple different things that they may have to comment out or change so that it is more like their version, right? Where we have certain things that are, available in v62 Orbis that may not be available in version 1 Orbis, like storage. They need to take away the storage, and that takes time and effort, right? So the first thing I wanted to go over was the shift in the meta. Now, have you ever played League of Legends, Newbane?
No.
Have you played any? Have you played any competitive
MOBAs?
games? Yeah, MOBAs or.
No.
No.
Well, you know enough about them to.
I know enough.
Yeah.
Okay. So essentially, in League of Legends, which is the most popular MOBA at the moment, they have a patch just about every 2 weeks, right? Where they change up some of the power levels of the characters, the items, the different runes and masteries, which are things you decide before the game, as well as different values on monsters and turrets and stuff like that, so that they shake up the game so it's fresh for people to play and things feel a little more balanced. Maybe they rework characters. Maybe they, there's a lot that can be changed over time, and they regularly update it at about every 2 weeks. And that's a long enough time span for people to figure out, okay, what is the best way to play the game, which is the meta. The meta is, what is the meta? What's in the meta is often referred to as the best way to play the game. What is the most optimal strategy? What's being played where? How are people building their characters and things like that? So when you say to experience the shift in the meta, there's not over 3 to 4 weeks, which is the time that's allocated for you to experience the shift in the meta. There's nothing that isn't already figured out. MapleStory is a decade-old game. There is no new, there is no new technique optimized. There is no new skill build found. There is no item selection that is better. If you are truly using the GMS-like spawns, unless you're making a custom server, if your server is truly nostalgic and is practically 100% GMS-like, it's already been solved. The game's already been done so many times. You don't really, there is nothing new to explore in terms of the meta. We already know what is good at certain maps. We already know how to build our characters for the experienced player. Some players don't, and we've seen that, across many servers. People put in wrong points and skill builds, but whether the content comes out now or comes out later, those players are still going to make the same mistakes. There's no shift in how you would play your character per se.
So what ASDF is saying on the OSMcast is that they need a month for them to release something new, because they want to have a month for the players to experience the new meta, which is, them getting used to the game, them, shifting things, going to new maps, trying to be the best in that current version.
Yep.
And they need a month to do it, which is, at least in our opinion, really just doesn't make any sense.
It's
probably anybody that plays the game and, is level 70, level 80, if your third job and you're playing OSM, you are tapping your toes waiting for new content. And for them to say, oh, we're just waiting for you to enjoy the meta before we put in a few more features for you to have fun with, give you some new maps. Honestly, I feel like that would be a slap in the face if I was one of those players. So
it's questionable because, right, if you take it the average playtime, right, and so the top ranked players most likely play 8+ hours a day. This isn't an exaggeration. It's, some of them play at work and then come home and still play it. That is the time required. Like, if you look at how often Cheater was playing OSM, he was doing crazy long days, like insane amount of hours. So 8 is like a fair number for the upper echelon of players. And then if we take the casual players, which is 30 minutes to an hour per day, maybe, the middle player base where they're playing the average amount of time is probably around 2 to 4 hours a day. And if you play for 4 hours a day for 30 days, you are experiencing the meta for 120 hours of the same maps. If you are already a top level player, you move from one map to the next map, which is the most EXP per hour you can get, which in this case is Coolies or Banes. Right. There is some swapping between them because one's expensive and one makes money, but relatively it's more or less the same. So I personally don't think for the intermediate median players, I don't think you need 120 hours to experience it.
Yeah.
I think it can be experienced in 60. I think 60 hours of playtime in Elnath before you receive third job, and then another 60 after, would be more appropriate than 120, 240.
Whether you're casual or you're upper echelon, or I like to call them lifestyle players, the game's literally your, whether you're a casual or you're a lifestyle player, you don't need 120 hours in the same map before you get tired of it. What I like to use as a general rule of thumb when it comes to these progressive servers is, as soon as your top player reaches content, or say your top player reaches 70, right? That's your deadline right there. Within 2 weeks, I think within 2 weeks of somebody hitting that mark, you have to provide that content to them, or they're probably going to quit, to be honest. And a lot of them have, and it's demonstrated through some research that maybe we have here, but I don't know.
We do have some spicy graphs, and credits to Exile, creator of these graphs and collector of this information. We got to make sure we check our sources, Malbec. We don't want to get plagiarism claims or anything like that. We have some epic graphs of how the player base has been going. Whoops. I got rid of Malbec. Hold on a second. All right, Malbec's back.
Save me!
So before that, I just want to say one thing.
Sure.
I think the reason that ASDF chose that path in content is because he's a huge fan of like, I guess what I call like the progressive meme, where I don't know, it's just something about like content be released. No, okay, it's not even just content. It's like having like GMS content, I guess, like that are jobs or certain towns or something like that, released on a GMS-like schedule to a certain demographic of players, which I don't know, I find it strange, especially when there have been literally like progressive servers already. Like, I feel like people would have had enough of that already. Like, it's not absolutely necessary to start off like locked in Victoria Island, and some people like that.
We have a comment, but if you don't mind me interrupting, we have a comment in chat. The simple answer is it's not for everyone. The thing is,
exactly,
if you're running a server, so as a player base, you expect your server owner to continue to appeal to core ideas, right? The core ideas of OSM is a nostalgic, vanilla, old school experience that you can relive, what it was like to play back then. And I guarantee that most people that were playing back then were not constantly waiting for new areas to come out and new content to come out. Most of the time, vast majority of players had that content ready for them. There were only a select small percentile of people who were actually waiting for that new content to come out in the very early days of playing the game. Also, as a player base, you expect that the administration will try to, within the core values, appeal to the largest audience possible so that you can achieve a massively multiplayer online game. You want the administration to appeal to casuals. You want to stay within the core ideas, right? And I don't think that varying the schedule by a week is straying from core ideas. I think that's still staying well within the bounds of the pillars of the server, while still appealing to a lot of the people who are playing it, and then you can keep them at your server. And that's what you want as a player. I mean, maybe it's not what you want specifically, but a general when I'm playing a server, I want the server administration to make the attempt to appeal to as large of an audience as possible. Right. And the hardcore players are the people who are playing your server the most. They're the people on Twitch. They are the people who are grinding day in and day out, right, on your server, advertising for it constantly. And to not kind of cater to them a little bit is definitely a mistake, right? And we saw that with Cheater. Maybe Cheater quit a little too early, right?
He was ready. That guy was ready to quit.
Yeah, like he was grinding for so long, and it just felt like his needs just were not being met at a pace that was acceptable at all, right? And I doubt he's not the only player who feels like that. So we have some charges.
I think they definitely.
Go ahead, Newbane.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
So I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, as like a server, or I guess an ex-server owner, really should not make the mistake of like always catering to your player base, because a lot of times it's just like a loud minority. Like, I'm not saying never listen to your player base. In fact, at Maple Beta, we listen to our player base a lot, but I'm saying like just because like a loud minority are just like yelling like, oh, we want content now, like it doesn't mean you should necessarily cater to that. However, saying where like if your top players are hitting walls, really like, especially if they're already quitting, then I definitely think that's a signifier that you should change up your strategy, so to speak. Like, okay, fine. Like you said, update 3 in 1 month. Okay, fine. To come in like 2 weeks or something like that, or like 3 weeks. So you're not necessarily just like immediately capitulating to like player demands, but you can slowly maybe like shift the time, like the schedule a little bit.
Just shift the meta a little faster, right?
Right.
You need to work dynamically with the player base. In OSM's case, where people were, like you were saying, hitting that wall, hitting a content wall, and just giving up because the forecast for the next release was 4 to 6 weeks from the current time, where they're already out of content. Of course, you're going to table flip and quit if you're 4 to 6 weeks left of grinding golems or whatever it is. And they're saying like, oh, it's going to be a while. Of course, you're not going to stay on the server, and that's why a lot of people did quit. And we have the graphs and stats to back up people actually leaving the server.
Yep. So we have some graphs of OSM numbers, which they've been allowing us to gather from their site, thankfully, as well as some comparisons to other iterations of OSM, and sort of. We can compare and contrast. So I'll zoom in on this a little bit. So these right graphs, I'm not exactly sure what they are because I can't remember. But the left graphs, I don't think you can see my cursor. But the left graphs are the ones that I know exactly what they mean and the numbers they're pulled from. So here we have, the
we can
launch.
see the cursor, by the way.
Oh, it's pretty small, but if you can see it here at the beginning, at the top, we have the 512, which was the maximum they achieved, in terms of online count at launch, and then we had some server issues, right? And we had delay in content, and eventually this dwindled down. This number, however, we didn't get a chance to update the graph with the player shop update, but now OSM is sitting at about like 212, 220, something to that effect. So they had a large captive audience immediately at launch, and then it slowly tapered off due to decisions, the server being too hardcore, and things to that effect.
The huge downtime as well.
Yeah, there was about 1 month, I believe it was one entire month, where the server was unstable for random periods of time. And then we have the monthly users logged in graph, which now has gone from about 4,100 to, you can go look at the website right now, is 2,100. So we've seen the total player base monthly drop by about in half, which is not great. So here we have, there is, I think before the next graph, I have a, let's see, let me close this. Oh, whoops, wrong one. Don't look at my background picture. It's lol nerd stuff. Okay, so.
Is that hentai?
No, it was Aurelia. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about was how they labeled that the player count that they received on launch was unsustainable. And I'm going to play the clip here.
What?
Constantly gets memed and brought up, and we do want to address it a little bit. So what I have to say about this is that no one expected OSM to blow up as hard as it did, in the sense that we had 500 players on launch. Now, obviously, we're extremely thankful for all those players. It was amazing the first couple of weeks to literally go to any map, any channel, and have 5 players on it constantly at all times. It was just a really exciting race of who's going to go to the top. But with version 1 of MapleStory, when there's not a lot of content, when there's no third job and there's only Victoria, like that 500 player count is unsustainable. Unless all those 500 players are super hardcore and they're willing to accept and believe in the vision that OSM has, which a lot of them did and still play to this day, it's just unsustainable to have that many players that are, most of them are casuals, let's be honest. Hype builds up on hype. Everyone's playing OSM, everyone wants to check it out, everyone's streaming it, this and that. It's just unsustainable. I think that, even in its current state, at this point with version 3, we're only just about where Maple Global was in terms of the content. And, Maple Global, which later was named to be Tales of Victoria, didn't have a strong player base. So I think it's just that it is a lot to do with the...
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there with him saying that Maple Global did not have a strong player base. That Tales of Victoria and the predecessor server and just was not a success. It was unsustainable. They ran into the same problem, right? That's the claim being made, and it's a little incorrect. We have the data, thankfully provided by Exile, for a comparison graph of what
Exile, if nobody knows, is the if anybody doesn't know, is the owner or administrator of Maple Global, which is the server that predicated TOV and OSM. So this is direct stats from the stuff that he was working on.
Alrighty, so sorry for the bar in the middle, but here we have OSM's graph of their monthly active players. As you can see, it's going into the toilet. And then here we have Maple Global's graph. Maple Global's graph, here, as you can see, the sharp increase and the mountain, what I'd like to call Facebook ad mountain. There was noticeably a sharp decrease. This was the players realizing that this wasn't actually ran by Nexon, and that, holy shit, why did I ever play this game as a kid? It's way too goddamn hard. And then we had players, slowly teeter up. It was still growing, and then we had a little taper off towards the end. Most of the tapering off towards the end was once players finally got bored of LNAF, and people in Discord were spamming, "We want third job, we want third job," right? And this was, these players lasted a goddamn long time before.
You say these players, you were one of them.
I was one of them. But...
I saw you push into 70. I remember.
Dude, that was rough. So we have, even with less content, without third job, a second job LNAF server was still experiencing growth. Way after launch, way after Facebook Ad Mountain, until DMCA. Right? So there's statistical proof that the number is sustainable.
And right there toward the end, with Maple
If
Global
things
kind
are
of
done.
tapering off, they were about to release third job right when the server shut down.
Yeah.
So there, we can't predict this for certain, but you can expect a little bit of a spike at the end of that graph if the server were to stay up.
Now, peeps are lit. That is correct. There were TOV, which was the same server, right? That was underground and had significantly less players due to no real updates. And then there was Acacia, which came out running at the same time as Tales of Victoria. But then the developer also stopped coming out with updates. And Acacia, I don't think it wasn't really the same hardcore experience. I played and I was rank 1 archer there. I played the server a lot. It was 3x. It had pretty much all of the Vic Island expanded content, which included Forest of Golems and Monkey Forest 2. And that made grinding really easy, to be honest. It didn't take very long to reach high levels. The player base is going to be less with each iteration. But the thing is, they had way more players. They had captive so many more players than both of those servers combined, right? They had 512 players on launch. That was more online than MG had ever achieved. It was more online than Acacia ever achieved. I don't think Acacia rarely made it above 100 players ever, right? So, the idea that they didn't, no one's going to do it again, right? No one's going to play this server idea again is just clearly false, because there were 4,000 people who were, actively playing the server monthly, right? That number is large. That is a large number, right? There were people who were eager to play this idea again. If they weren't eager to play it again, they wouldn't have made accounts and logged in. They would have said, it's the progressive server again. I'm just going to skip out on this one. And that's what I did. I don't have an account. I didn't make one because I was done with the idea.
Mm-hmm. The way that he kept saying unsustainable like that really, demonstrates the lack of confidence he has in his own server, I think. And not just the server itself, but the idea of the server. It makes me question why he would put up a server if he believes that, long term it's not sustainable anyway. If the idea of a low rate server, very low rate, 1x rates, there hasn't really been a long term successful one, not counting the live server, right? Mm-hmm. He does have something to go on there when he says that it's unsustainable because it hasn't been done before long term. But, going into it, being the owner of a server, you would want probably to speak a little bit more confidently about the concept of your server as a whole. If your ideology is already a little on unstable ground, then how are the players of the server going to have any trust in you or confidence in the server going forward if you yourself think that your server is unsustainable?
Yeah, it really kind of it raises a bunch of question marks for me, because as a staff member of a server, you should have faith and believe in your server. When I was staff at Tales of Victoria, I thoroughly believed in the server. I believed in its success. I really wanted it to succeed. You wouldn't see me saying things like, guys, our player count is unsustainable because of how the features are. I would say things like, well, he did say things like this, but that wouldn't be the things coming out of my mouth. And yes, I did believe in Wacky for a spell of time. So Wacky's a great guy. He's my boy, but at the same time, Wacky's server administration is not in line with my current standards. To say the least,
standards are high at this point.
Yeah, my standards are really high, and Wacky just falls a little short. That's all.
Before we leave, like, the notion of progressive servers, my question, for anyone who likes the idea of a progressive server is, especially a progressive server that is supposed to be GMS-like with very little deviation from the norm. Not from the norm, from like being GMS-like, is what, and actually related to the previous topic of getting content updates every like 2 weeks or something like that. Mm-hmm. It's like, what are you going to do once you hit the final wall? Once you hit like V39 or whatever, which I think is kind of like an arbitrary point. I think the only reason people, but whatever. It's like once you hit like V39 or whatever, and like, that's it. Like, that's all the content you're ever going to have.
Well, they did make a statement on that. They said once they reached V39, they'll take the sort of old school RuneScape approach where they talk about things that could be implemented into the server.
I'm sure you didn't credit where you got that idea from.
I'll be the pessimist here. I'll be the pessimist here if there's not enough of us already. I don't believe any progressive server is going to go 39 versions successfully. I don't think that'll ever happen.
Here's my other side of the coin, right? Not even tinfoil hat. Literally every server in existence is progressive. I don't think there's a single, except for Zachem, Assyria, Alinea, where they all stay the same and they just wipe and rebrand. Every single server currently on GTOP that's not Dead Zachem MS plans on releasing other things. They plan on making new content and new things for their players to do. I don't think there's any server that honestly goes into it and says, we're just releasing this and we're just going to leave it there. We're not going to develop any new things for our players at all. So in a larger sense, they are all literally progressive.
That's not really the way that we're talking about.
Yeah, I know, but it's
how progressive means. Because by that standard, Maple Beta was progressive.
Yeah, Maple Beta is progressive in a way, but not truly, GMS patch progressive.
Sure.
Per se.
But what you mean is, you always want to be doing patchwork on your server and putting in updates and keeping the players happy. I think that's what you mean by it. And that's obviously a given with any private server. But the idea of a private server that's going to be progressive, it's a absolutely just crazy bold, tasks for you to try and take on. And you, like I've been saying on other podcasts before this one, you need a team of people that are competent and that are invested in it, and you need a huge community that's going to be supporting you through it. Mm-hmm. Without those things, it's doomed to fail, and it hasn't happened so far.
And I think that was kind of some of the magic with Maple Global. The previous iteration was I've talked with Newbane about this in DMs and personal conversations where we were sort of comparing, contrasting Maple Global to Maple Beta and why people chose one or the other, or why people believed certain things over other things, whether they were true or not. And it was sort of the picture of the server that they painted, right? The way they presented their server was the perfect iteration of GMS. It was, it's the shit. Everyone believed in it. Everyone thought it was the best thing since sliced bread. Tons of people were streaming MG just like they did OSM. The belief behind the server, the player base that played it, confidently believed in the development and the administration of the people who were running it. They had the resume, they had the pedigree, they were doing it from scratch, all these different things, and they were trying to make it as authentic as possible with every bone in their body. And that sort of really what attracted me to the server in general. And you don't really maybe it's me being too cynical. I'm sure some fresh eyes on OSM experience the same thing, where they truly believe that they are trying their hardest to make it as nostalgic as possible. But with certain quality of life features existing and then being removed, and then other ones that aren't nostalgic at all being added, I can't see how they can experience the same sort of magic that I felt with MG.
Like the buff timers and the monster EXP bars being removed, although they are really, really quality of life and they don't affect the gameplay at all. other than positively. Those being removed, I'm sure that struck a pretty nasty chord with a lot of the players there.
It did, and there were a lot of complaints about that, and I don't see the server sort of represented in the same light, and I think that kind of wraps back into our player base is unsustainable, like the comment that we can't sustain these players because our game just simply isn't made to. And
can't sustain the players because the players are sick of your shit, and your poor updates and the server instability and all the things that have been going on in the background. The more people learn about the administrators are like, oh, fuck this. This is kind of sketchy.
Yeah.
So that's probably where the unsustainability comes from. And maybe it's his own self-awareness of knowing that he's that sort of person and knowing that his server has that reputation. Maybe that's where he actually gets the idea of it being unsustainable and not the features itself. Personally, I think it's the features itself. I don't see a server like that being sustainable long term.
Dude, I like
progressive one-time server. I can't see it. Like I was saying earlier, I can't see that going the full 39 versions without one reason or another it being shut down.
Yeah, I agree with chat. The politics of the server are kind of past that. Anyone who would be turned off to it from the server politics has already done so, except for Tice who returned for some reason. despite being vehemently against it.
Team quit, guys. Everybody.
Team quit. But okay, so I have another clip based on them talking about how they don't know how to reach players. And this one's weird because it's, I don't know, the way they approach it is odd, right? So I'm gonna play it.
So definitely, we do want to communicate more. We feel like we're trying. But it's hard because everyone is either on Discord or everyone doesn't read the Discord and they're on the forums, or people just play the game and they don't interact with either of those things. So it's sort of hard to get a sense of where our community lies, which is sort of the idea for this server or this talk show, in the sense that now we can directly just talk to everyone that's interested in talking with us, and we can communicate directly with the community. And we plan to do more of these. This is our first one, so we're not sure how many more we're gonna do, or when exactly. We'll announce that probably.
Okay, so the rest doesn't really pertain, and I'm sorry for the audio being quiet. I should have recorded it louder, and I don't currently have a way of turning it up any louder than that without messing with other stuff. So,
all right, what do you have to say about this? Because I've got some shit to say.
I'll go ahead and summarize it for people who couldn't quite hear. Basically, it was saying that they didn't know how to reach players because players are in the game on Discord or on the forums or doing none of it. And so their grand solution to fixing players not seeing or reading what they say is to go to a different form of media, which is Twitch and YouTube, and do it there. And
which is what? Could you just say it again?
Which is to go to Twitch and to add another different thing other than the games forum and Discord, and then they're going to talk to players over on this other thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And that doesn't really line up logically for me.
Doesn't make any sense. I mean, the way that he said it, his own words, they now have a way to communicate directly with the people that play the server. How about through the server itself? You have the game through the Discord that everybody that plays the game is on, or through the forums that, a lot of people don't go on the forums, to be honest, but you got 3 direct ways of communicating with your community. There's no reason for you to go on Twitch or YouTube if you're trying to get more people, if you're trying to get more eyes, that's one thing, but that's not the reason cited for doing the OSMcast. It's because they want to have a more open, direct communication with the players. If they want that, they don't need to hire some dude with a wig and have him read questions for you so you can monologue. It's the most outlandish, stupid way of trying to connect on a closer level with your players. If you yourself won't even go on camera and talk to them directly, if you won't reply to DMs, if you won't get in voice chat with the players,
I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do respond to players in Discord. It doesn't line up logically for me because it's creating another medium that people have to go out of their way. Yeah, like Fongy said, they do reply to Discord DMs and things like that. It just doesn't seem to make sense to me why adding another form of media would make your communication more widely known by their player base. I think there's a different way of doing it, right? They already have Discord integration in the game. It's possible that, let's say there is a new announcement on the forums. Okay, how do you reach the people in the game that aren't on Discord or maybe aren't on the forums? You could have a scrolling message at the top that just simply says, we're pushing out an update soon. Let's get hype, guys, or something like that. I'm sure GMS has had scrolling messages for new content or announcing new things, or if you want to learn more, go check out the forums or something to that effect, right?
I actually have an idea.
So like better communication, you mean?
Announcement out to players. So
sure.
Maybe like a pop-up when they log into like in-game that only pops up once.
Oh, kind of like a note.
Or actually memos exist. Right, you can actually have a memo.
Yeah.
Like where you just click OK, but that only happens like once or like twice or something, so it doesn't get annoying.
Yeah. Not like a repeatable effect, or something via the help button that they've implemented, where there's something, maybe with each update on the help button, it has, I don't know, some new teaser for what's coming next, maybe on the help button, or if you want to learn more, check out the forums, or they have a lot of tools at their I can't even talk. At their hands, they have tools that they can use to communicate to players in game and on Discord, and you can tie them together. It doesn't have to be these separate things, and I don't think that introducing some new form of doing this is really required. There are some other servers like Maple Saga, for instance, that doesn't even have a Discord. All they have is the game and the forum, and that's how the staff communicates with the players.
That's the old school way of doing it. Almost every private server for the longest, obviously before Discord, that was the way to do it. You had a forum and you had the game, and that's really the only way.
Yeah, and I can I've talked to the guy who owns Maple Saga. He's like, yeah, I'm not really interested in owning a Discord because it's his quote directly was, it feels too Orwellian, which you can leave up to your own discretion and think about it for a little bit. But he's able to effectively communicate with the players via the website. When you go to the Maple Saga website, there's a pop-up when there's a new important forum post that you should go check out. And it literally, you have to literally click off of it. It's a giant fucking pop-up and you have to click the X if you're not interested, or you go to the forum and check out what's going on. And you could do the same thing in game. You could have something in game that says, whoa, go check out the forums for what we're doing next, or the latest whatever, and you could have it scrolling across the top. And there's a lot of really easy ways that you can connect the three, and doing it via something else doesn't feel like you're connecting them.
I think what I want to do now, let's address the elephant in the room, because we know that he has personal problems with communication. He has a laundry list of ways to communicate with his players that is not debatable. Let's address the elephant in the room, which is why he did the OSMcast and why maybe he continues to do so. It's because we invited him onto our show.
No.
And he said no.
They invited themselves.
Sorry. They wanted to come onto our show, and then they backed out of it.
There we go.
So they got the idea for doing a show from us.
Wait,
okay, hold on.
Wait, Malbec. Are you saying that the forum post where they said that everyone was begging for the OSM cast, the OSM talk show, where they went onto Twitch and talked to players?
This is what I want to address. Okay, so they do the OSM cast because they didn't do R. It's the replacement for doing for backing out, and it's their cop out, and it's their excuse for backing out of the show. Point blank, that's really what it is. It's what they're doing it for. It's completely a response to our show. I know it sounds super arrogant, but it's the truth. He has a million ways to communicate with his players, and he doesn't need a Twitch broadcast to do it. Not just that, this is so illustrative of just the reputation that ASDF has when it comes to stealing content and ideas from other people. There are no new ideas coming from him on his side of things. There's few.
There's digressive EXP, but but
well, I still don't understand why it's called progressive experience.
Wait.
What?
There was something I do want to credit ASDF with, which was actually genius, right? Okay. The web embeds on the website were actually a really great idea, and I think I drastically underestimated their impact on OSM that it had, right? Where we had people who, like they said themselves, they really didn't expect that many players, and I think it really made a lot of other servers reconsider what Twitch is as an advertising platform. And
so do you think
I will credit him with
genius? Was it a stroke of genius?
I think it was a stroke of genius.
Really? Do you think it was, premeditated? Like, I'm going to put these on here. More people are going to see the private server, or was it sort of like, let's just throw these on?
I think it was a stroke of genius where it was like, okay, how do people find private servers in 2K19? And the way I found private servers was literally via Twitch. I found it via KBBQ stream when he was streaming MG, and I know a lot of other people that I personally stream Maple private servers, and I'll have people come in. It used to be more frequent, but I'll have people come in and say, "Whoa, what is this? What is going on? Is this
right?
This is old school Maple. How do I play this? Where do I go?" And
there is no denying the success that has come from OSM doing web embed views on their website from Twitch. So maybe let me backpedal a little bit here. Maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe they didn't steal the idea from us. Maybe they recognized the power of Twitch and the amount of people that it brings in and the viewership, and they just wanted to do their own thing. Am I wrong about that? I don't know. I'm pretty sure it was a direct ripoff and a cop-out for not being on our show.
Definite kudos to using Twitch as an advertising platform. I think servers like Maple Legends have learned from this. Maple Legends has promotes their streamers via the site now, and Maple Unity does as well. And I think this will be a reoccurring trend.
So what I want to say is definitely Roar was the one who brought back TOV to like really decent numbers, and it wasn't even.
Say that again? You got cut out.
Roar on TOV was definitely
ASDF.
Yeah, go ahead.
So ASDF is responsible for bringing TOV back up in terms of player count, like single-handedly, and it was with the website.
Yeah, the website lit the fire under TOV. Some people like it, some people don't, but it definitely restored hope in a server that literally had no updates and really revived the idea. And they were almost hitting like 100 player count towards the end during the anniversary event, which he also helped work on. And I don't know if he realizes it, but the things that he does and makes in terms of advertising could be learned from.
So there are definitely successes that he's had. I mean, if there's a number of successes that he's had in the past, then what makes it so difficult for him to hire on other people to work with him and work with his strengths, bring on people that have their own strengths? Because obviously,
they have. They brought on another developer, FoxPat, which is
Wig Guy.
No, it's not Wig Guy. It's Fox Developer Guy, and I'm pretty sure
I don't know about that.
I'm pretty sure he is behind the HD client. So they are reaching out. They are getting more. I'm not positive on that. Don't quote me. Could have been either of them, but that's just the hunch. I have the hunch that's who helped remove some of the quality of life things that were bugging them about not being true to their version, and they are trying to sort of right the ship a little bit when it comes to things like this.
I think it's been somewhat successful so far. I mean, OSM, I wouldn't call it thriving right now, what with those charts we were just looking at, but it's up.
It could be better. Is more or less what we're saying is you could.
What do you guys think? What would your opinion be on, well, if you to counsel him on what he could do better?
Well, I don't think there's much that we haven't really covered already, and I kind of want to sort of move on a little bit. So that we're not really beating a dead horse.
Okay.
I thought. Do you have something that's really integral to add?
It was just something you said about the HD client. So that I actually wanted to speak about the sort of, at least what I think is the future of MapleStory development.
Mm-hmm.
So, like whenever we get a chance.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll wrap it into the end or something like that. Okay, so we've got a clip that I thought was funny because they were talking on the OSMcast about how to beat MapleStory. And this actually sort of by chance happened to coincide with a video made by I believe it's Donkey's girlfriend or wife. He's someone who makes YouTube videos.
Video Game Donkey?
Video Game Donkey. His girlfriend, Leah B, made a video about how to beat MapleStory. And I thought it would be really important if we compare it to how Roar thinks MapleStory should be beaten, because they differ a lot, right?
All right, let's hear it.
All right.
Players, you won't be able to feel the shift in the meta and really get to experience MapleStory in its fullest. And ultimately, it could not fill your itch of wanting to finish, quote-unquote, finish MapleStory in its fullest and quote-unquote beat MapleStory. So yeah, are we losing players? Yes, but we also have hundreds of dedicated players that...
Okay, so basically hitting this... I wasn't able to capture... well, I didn't want to capture the entire context, but the entire context was the progressive EXP allows players to hit third job and get to that point where, you know, they eventually do Zachem and sort of beat MapleStory, the childhood dream of, you know, grinding the third job, doing Zachem, defeating it like a big boss, right? However, there is another video. Where is it? Gotta find it. Oh, there it is.
I'm curious about what Video Game Donkey's girlfriend had to say.
Her video is very informative. I can assure you that. All right.
Recently,
Hold
I've
on.
been streaming
Gotta switch scenes here. I'll make it full screen. Yeah, we'll turn it up a little bit.
a little MapleStory, and it came to my attention that most people don't understand MapleStory at all, and they want to know how to beat the game. Well, it's really simple. All you have to do to beat the game is to kill every type of mushroom. First off, you gotta know how to jump and how to punch. It's kind of like Mario, you know, instead of you jumping on the mushrooms, you gotta punch them. So here I go demonstrating on the first type of mushroom. It's called the shroom.
All right, essentially you get the idea. Basically, we're supposed to kill every single type of mushroom in the game, and that is how you defeat it. And clearly Roar's understanding is misplaced, and you know, he hasn't provided every type of mushroom to players. We don't have the big mossy mushrooms from, what is it? It's like Victoria Island, but like in the past or something like that. Yeah, there's future version mushrooms that aren't included in OSM yet. I don't know if they're being added later. We'll probably need a response from ASDF based on, you know, how are we going to obtain all of these mushrooms from different versions to kill.
I got an idea. I think there should be maps that are locked behind RNG donation content.
Mm-hmm.
So all you have to do is donate to get a random ticket to get into those maps and kill those mushrooms.
Brilliant.
I think that would be a fitting way to beat MapleStory, behind some sort of paywall that's RNG, where you can finally defeat the mushrooms.
Just like outpay to win them.
Hey, you know what? I bet that server would make a lot of money killing those mushrooms, man.
I'm a big fan of Mushroom Game. Okay.
How many more clips from the OSMcast do we have?
I only have one more, but I'm gonna kind of. It's basically we're not gonna listen to it because it takes too much time. Basically, it was addressing the concerns that the server was going to wipe because people were spamming wipe pipe in the Discord. You know, player base is dropping. We should just wipe, right? And
it's just typical things that happen. Like,
yeah,
it's pretty common. Server. It's pretty common. But I want to sort of address some misconceptions that some of the white pipe spammers may have, and some of the people who are reading the white pipe spam may have, about what really does white pipe entail. And I think some of the people who are spamming it don't really know the full ramifications of what wipe hype really means. And I think it's ironic because OSM is staff from a previous server, some of them renamed, some of them not, starting at a fresh start with a better source code or better stuff to work from, so that they can readily push out content faster and appeal to players better than the previous iteration. Their goal is to be like Maple Global, but fix it, which is what OSM is. So you wiped the server to start from better stuff to better appeal to players.
So TOV to OSM pretty much
is a wipe hype. It's a wipe hype. Yeah. That's what I'm getting at. It's like, that's literally what was done. They wiped it. It got hype. There were 500 players. They have way more concurrent players than TOV had, which was the previous iteration. So, success?
Yeah, I guess might as well be. Except for the fact that their population is on a downward slope.
Well, it could be on the upward.
I don't think you can credit their success to just the wipe hype. Like I said, I mean, Roar was able to bring TOV again. ASDF was able to bring TOV from. They had like 5 people on, or like 10 people on, to, or something like 50, 60 people within like the span of less than a month. It's really never about content or server per se. Like, again, it does matter. It is important.
Were those new players that were coming back because of him, or sorry, was it new players that were joining, or was it old players coming back because the website went up?
It was both.
It was a lot of new players.
It was the fall of Acacia, as well as players like Kradia joined sort of the private server community. He hadn't really played until well, he might have played before Tales of Victoria, but that was where I first saw him, and that was where he was first streaming and stuff like that. Yeah. So there were new players that came back, and then there was the old guard that was playing Acacia, or maybe not playing at all, where TOV was home to them again, me included.
Well, let's be honest here. What successful private server has been birthed from the ashes of a different one? Odin?
It was really popular when it was around.
It was.
Like,
well, what I'm saying is, like, what private server hasn't been birthed from the ashes of another? Just like a player base migrating somewhere else. I mean, almost every private server has done that.
I'm pretty sure Legends sort of grew its claim to fame because Royals had a lot of downtime, right? But I don't know. That's not really the same. I think people have. I think a lot of people have this weird negative connotation of wipe hype, and I think the longer you spend playing private servers, the more cyclical it becomes in your brain, and you just start to accept it. Like, you have, like, I haven't been in it for that long, but Austri, I know, is a big proponent of wipe hype, non-ironically, not sarcastic, of just any server where the server population dips below a certain amount. Austri's like, at that point, you know what? Fuck this shit. I'm out.
If there's no discretion about your wipe hype, then at that point you're just a troll going in like, hey, wipe the server.
There is discretion. It's based on like player count and how the generic trend of the server is going. He'll play it hardcore, and then once it reaches a certain point where maybe not as many people are playing, or it's kind of going the wrong way, he'll be like, all right, this server should probably be wiped. And as a veteran player, I'm probably going to play MapleStory again.
You know what really sucks? I'm not a big fan of wipe hypes. I do like launches and playing competitively for the first week or two. But what I like most about servers is a server that's been up for a while, not just been up for a while, playing a server, playing through the hype, the initial hype, racing at the beginning, and then actually playing it sustainably for a long period of time. What's really annoying in the private server community that happens all too often is servers just shut down way too often. They shut down way too quick, and you don't have enough time to truly enjoy it. I think there are some notable exceptions. I know Hontail brought up Crusade as a great example of one that wasn't actually birthed from the ashes of something else. Crusade is probably an outlier in a lot of ways. I think they've got a great development team, and they're one of the servers that's actually doing it right. They are pushing out updates. They communicate really well. They've got a great website.
Depends on who you talk to.
Things. I know it's who you talk to, but the people that Yeah, I guess it is always who you talk to.
Yeah,
but,
because there's some
that would be a
people
good
who
example.
like what they're doing, and then there's other people like CeeLo that are just fed up with their shit, real world, trade their items away and get banned. But
what I'm saying is there's so many people that just like to play the launch and that aren't really in it for the long run.
Mhm.
And it's the long run that I really enjoy, even somebody that dips out usually pretty early on. When you do have that opportunity to be on a server for an extended period of time, it is so much fun
Mhm.
because every time a server shuts down, if you're really invested in it, it feels bad. And I think a lot of people here can relate to that.
Yeah, I definitely felt bad when MG shut down. I was definitely distraught for sure. Do you think, speaking of that, I know you were, this is kind of a tangent, you were a big proponent of Avalon. Do you think Avalon shut down too fast?
Yeah, actually, I do think Avalon shut down too fast. I wouldn't call myself a big proponent of Avalon, although I did enjoy the server. The reason why I did enjoy it was for a couple of reasons that a lot of people probably can't relate to. One of them was because I love their jump quest system. Out of left field, I know Scone, maybe you would appreciate the jump quests, but
I
a
love
lot
jump
of people
quests.
don't. I think it was every 3 hours, there was an automatic event where you could just click a button, whatever map you're in, and be transported to an event map, and it would be a jump quest, and whoever finishes would get a small prize. And I think that was a really fun feature to implement on a private server where you're grinding and you're grinding and you're grinding, and then you get this miraculous notification that you can break from your grind for a few minutes, have your map saved, go do a jump quest, go socialize with a few people that are in that map as well, and then come on right back. It felt like a little bit of a sanity break in the middle of a grind, and I really liked that. So that was the big thing that I liked about Avalon. I do think that it shut down too soon. I think it would have been a lot more fun to keep playing because I was really having a good time when it did shut down. However, I think the timing was right as far as OSM swooping in on the TOV community. I don't think they could have timed it any better.
I agree. I think they swooped in at the right time. Whether their server was ready or not is debatable. But
Right.
I think they pulled the trigger probably at the right time, and we saw that from player counts.
Still going to continue on this tangent while we're on it. I think we
Sure.
have a little bit of a mention to JQMS. If there's anything you wanted to mention about.
Look, JQMS is coming. The patient shall be rewarded.
All right, guys, think about this. This is something I'm actually excited about, and I don't get excited about private servers too often, if you can't tell. But a jump quest server where you just log in and do jump quests.
That'd be
and
epic. Someone should work on that.
have some rankings and try and get the best time. I think that sounds freaking awesome. It's obviously extremely not GMS like, but I think it'd be pretty fun.
Yeah, that'd be really neat. Hopefully someone in the Maple development community picks up on that idea and does it.
Yeah, pick up on it. Don't slack. Don't get too distracted by other projects.
That'd be awful if the JQMS developer got distracted on other weird stuff like talking about servers.
Yeah, okay. What I wanted to say before we jump into our next topic, which is the RNG Cosmetics. This is our second main topic of the. This is going to be.
This is a long one
so far. I don't mind. I think I'm having a good time. Either way,
Having a
before
blast.
we jump into our next topic, what I wanted to say about OSM was I want to give them a fair shake. I know that this is a disclaimer that I put out a little bit earlier. We just want to make private servers better. I'm sorry if it comes across like we're just heavily criticizing. Obviously, that's what we're doing. It's not something we're doing maliciously. We do have good intentions. We just want private servers to be better. We want people to discuss it and have a central location where everybody can come together and discuss what private servers should and shouldn't be doing and calling out the bullshit when we see it.
All right, so moving into topic 2. This is something that I thought initially this would be a really good topic, and that maybe I was on as part of like a majority here, where I didn't think I would be outnumbered on the podcast when we pulled initial reactions to this concept. I didn't think I would actually be the minority, but are cosmetics locked behind RNG with no catch-up mechanic, where there is no form of if you do this X amount of times, you get rewarded with something? Is this predatory? Right, where the idea of, and this isn't specific to OSM, there are other servers that have done this before. Where
Can you give an example?
I can. I'm 90
Maple beta.
Maple beta.
Well, no, not private server, but an example of an NX feature.
Oh, like in current GMS?
No, I'm talking about hairstyles.
Oh yeah. Regular coupons. We've got cubes. We've got all sorts of stuff where
Gachapon.
There are a lot of mechanics where you can just
They have cosmetic boxes, like where you can get like random NX, and it's tradable too, so you can sell it for money.
Right. So
it's like literally pay to win.
Exclusive items locked behind a random paywall. You have to buy multiple tickets of something to try and get one specific thing that you're trying to get. The question is that predatory or is that okay to have on a private server? What are your thoughts, Scone?
I'm a victim. Okay, this is predatory. You're taking advantage of me, and I want my dollary dues back. It fucking blows my mind, dude. It blows my mind that we are in 2K19 and you can't pay a little extra to get the thing that you want.
Well, what I'll say is I am not surprised that there's a victim in 2019 complaining about something.
This is important, damn it.
You know what I will say is, I don't, just in general, I don't see private services as businesses. I see them as, I'm not going to say what I said earlier. I call them a for-profit charity. I don't quite see it like for-profit charity either, but, they're providing a service for free. And it is absolutely up to you if you want to pay for that service. And if you are donating to a private server, it is your call. It's your fault. And I don't personally see it as predatory if you're spending $50, $60, $100 on something to try and get one thing locked behind a paywall. I think it's a dumb thing to do to spend that much money. But at the same time, if you're willing to support the server that generously and give $60 or $70, I don't think it's the hair that you're really looking for. I think it's you trying to do your best to support the server. If you do have the hair in mind with your $60, $70 that you're spending on it, then you're probably just dumb and it's your fault. So that's my stance on RNG.
That's a little harsh.
I mean, am I wrong? I mean, if you're spending $60 on a 15-year-old children's video game to play dress up, I think you're pretty dumb, man. I don't think that's a great idea to do. I think that's fiscally irresponsible to spend that much money to try and get something that petty locked behind a paywall. I don't blame private servers for doing that. It's a great way to try and pay for server costs. But I don't see it as predatory. What do you think, Newbane?
So my view on it is it all depends on like the intentions behind the so for like cosmetic hair, like when Maple Beta implemented it, it was just a way to get some like NX hair from like other versions, and the whole reason for the RNG factor was to make it somewhat rare. I felt that you just pay, I don't know, like 2K more NX or something like that, and just like guarantee get the hair you're looking for. It devalues the hairstyle.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, like this hairstyle is 6K NX. Like, oh, this hairstyle is 15K NX. Like, it just devalues the hair. Whereas if there's that RNG aspect to it, like, it's like, imagine you could pay, I don't know if you play like newer MapleStory, but like enhancements. Like, imagine you could pay like guarantee or like 100 mil to guarantee a star lands on your item with like the enhancements.
Yeah.
It kind of devalues it in a way.
That example is not great because that's not cosmetic. That's actually a gameplay feature where you'd be getting more power on your character to have higher damage. But if we're talking purely cosmetics, I mean, I have no sympathy for somebody who is wasting their money on cosmetics.
But the way you phrase it, Malbec, is if you're spending $60 to $70 on the hair, then you're just an idiot, right? But no one rolling for the hair goes into it thinking they're going to spend $60 to $70. They think I'm going to buy one ticket at a time, and they have some sort of imaginary threshold where I should probably get it in this amount of tries, right?
Sure.
Realistically speaking, if there's 10 hairs available, each regular coupon costs 2.1K NX. Realistically, if luck is fair, right, you should get it within $20.
Sure,
And
but if you're
$20 is-
financially responsible, at some point you're like, okay, I've been at this poker table for a long time, placing these small bets. I'm really in the hole now. I should probably.
Yeah, but poker's skill.
Well, not poker directly. Okay, let's say directly hairstyles. Say you're in the Genesis hair salon, right? And you really want red hair. You have a hairstyle you already want, but you want red hair.
Yeah.
So you are very generous. You have some extra money. You want to support the server. You send in $20. You roll, a few times. You don't get the red hair you want. You run out of money. You come to a point where you need to make a decision. A decision for yourself. This is nobody else's fault. You have to make your own decision. Do you say, all right, I am going to spend more money to try and get this red hair, or I'm just going to back out because I don't think this is actually worth more than $20. I don't even think it was worth $20 to begin with. As much as I'd like to support the server and give them more money, I feel as though I've already been generous enough. I'm just going to accept that I don't have red hair. I think that would be the responsible thing to do, and not something that somebody who is a victim would be thinking. They're not going to go in there thinking, oh my gosh, here's $2 more. I'm such a victim. Here's another $2.
That's me every fucking time.
Fault. This is the server's fault. This isn't my fault, And they've got their buddy standing next to them, and they're drunk, and they're going, "Oh, I'm gonna just $5 more, okay?" It's the individual's responsibility to stop giving money to to something that might not work out for him.
But I have several things to say about that.
Sure, go for it.
The first thing is like sort of like anecdotal experience. Like, you're absolutely right. Most people don't go into sort of, I guess, like slot machine essentially, thinking that they would spend however much money they will spend. Like, if you actually, like, again, anecdotally, if you would look at the donations, people will spend like, will donate like $10 or $15, not get the hair they want, and then spend another $20, not get the hair they want, spend another $20. And again, like, from that point of view, I do kind of see how it's like playing on fiction and sort of like sunk cost fallacy.
Right.
I can see how that happens. I'll say several things. So the first thing is, why do people go to casinos? Because it's fun to gamble. Like, people know they're not. I mean, maybe people who have like serious gambling addictions, maybe they genuinely think that they will win. Like, they'll be like, oh, I'm on a lucky streak or something. But most people, they go into casinos knowing that they're going to lose money. Just kind of like the thrill of the gambling. And then once you like eventually get it, like, it's just more satisfying when you finally get it.
Sure.
The second thing I want to say.
Yeah. Go ahead.
The second thing I want to say is draw a line between predatory and non-predatory. I would say it depends on whether or not there are certain sort of like regulations in place, constraints in place.
If the game's stacked against them.
Yeah.
Right, or rather like how badly it's stacked against them.
Sure.
For example, with random hairs. I definitely think that it's better to cycle out just like a handful of hairs at a time, instead of having like, you have a 1 in 100 chance to get the hair you want, like slots, or like essentially have the chance of you getting like the hairstyle you want reasonable. 20%, something like that. Like
right.
25 maybe. It really depends.
I think where it's at right now, I think is completely acceptable. I mean, if there's 10 hairstyles in the Orbis, hair salon, you have about a 10% chance of getting the one that you want. I think that's pretty reasonable. If the developer of the server decided to make specific hairstyles, one that they know that people want the most, to lower the percentage of them winning, that's when I draw the line and call it predatory. But the way that it's implemented into the game, I don't, in a natural vanilla way, I think it's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong.
I think,
I completely agree.
I think and there's like a middle ground here, right? Where people mention that certain like exclusive, like the idea that is locked behind RNG creates this false sense of exclusivity, right? Where you were able to roll the hair, so you having it means something because you either spent a bunch of money on it. Well, I'm not.
It means something to you. It doesn't necessarily mean something to other people.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think it's a real exclusivity. If it's a rare thing that you're getting and you have to pay money for it, and it's a randomly generated reward, I think that is real exclusivity. That's not a false notion of it.
Did I say it was false?
Yeah, that's what you said.
Okay. Well, take away I didn't mean it being false. Sorry.
Okay,
if you have the sense of exclusivity, where you can have sort of both worlds, right? Currently in GMS, there was something that Newbane mentioned earlier, where it cycles through a set of hairs, right? Where it's called the Royal Hair Coupon, where
actually where I got the idea for the premium hairs.
There you go. So it has a selection of hairs that are probably it's like weekly or bi-weekly. They're changed
Where's
and
that
updated. GMS.
GMS.
Okay.
So, and I think some private servers emulate it, but I can't think of it. I can't think of them specifically. But so there's a chance at getting each of them, and it's usually like 5, and they're random. And instead of 5 or now the price is increased, and it's actually the same price as VIP coupons because Nexon needs to go make money. But they have, I think currently there's still hairs that are exclusive to the regular coupon that aren't actually achievable via VIP. So you could have a world with both, where you have the gambling aspect, where there are some hairs that can only be achieved via gambling, but you still have the other system in place where people can pick what they want, right?
Sure.
And if that person who is, you can have sort of the exclusivity and the rolling and the gambling, and there's that one hair that's locked behind that RNG paywall, and that's sort of where supporting the server comes into play, where if you get stuck with an ugly hair, for example, right? For some players, this means more than others, right? Where if you're rolling for hairs and your $20 runs out, and you're on the fucking patchy bald spot hairstyle. Now, Malbec, you might roll with the patchy bald spot hairstyle.
I'd put a hat on.
I literally cannot. I cannot function with the game playing with that hairstyle on my head.
Okay, let me stop you there.
I have to go to the next one.
Let me stop you there then. Is that your fault or is it the game's fault?
No, it's the game's fault.
Okay.
You can also say, like, why don't you buy a VIP coupon and just get something, like, reasonable?
But what if the
Not necessarily what you wanted, but...
He doesn't want to settle. He wants the one he wants.
But what if they don't exist, Newbane?
Well, I mean, I guess. Like, if you make... Hold on 1 second.
It is a smart business decision, if you want to call it a business, fine, to block something like that. Just a few things that that the people like Sconed are going to be trying really hard for. If it's going to be a cash cow for the server, if it's something cosmetic that doesn't affect gameplay, it's completely benign and it's going to make an extra buck. It's totally fine and it's not predatory.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, I had to be right back. What happened?
It's just explaining my case again.
I also have like one more constraint, and that's for hairs. Like, you should be protected against getting the same hairstyle like multiple times.
OSM. OSM. I spent. By the way, guys, I donated $20 pretty early on when they released the cash shop. Mm-hmm. And I really wanted, well, I shouldn't say I really wanted, I had one in mind that I wanted.
Sure.
And I spent money on trying to get the hairstyle that I wanted. I got it on the first try. I got the hairstyle that I wanted on the first try. I was really happy about it. However, to match my outfit, which was blue, I wanted blue hair. So I rolled pretty much the rest of my donation money, the whole $20 left of it. So it must have been about 16 or so, trying to get the hair color that I wanted. And in rolling to try and get the blue hair, I ended up getting brown hair in a row 3 times, and that's what you're talking about. I feel as though that's where it crosses the line towards predatory. If the game is stacked against you in that sense, there has to be some sort of, like you said, protection against that happening, that it can't be the one that you currently have. I think it's okay to have brown hair, then go to green, and then go back to brown. I think that's totally fine. But to have brown hair then roll brown hair, I think that's really frustrating, and that's where I would call it predatory.
Right, exactly. And we had,
for the record, I finished with purple hair and I didn't donate. Sconed.
Purple hair is sweet.
Fiscally responsible.
That's kind of close to blue. You know, you got there.
My character still looks like shit though, with blue outfit and purple hair.
I mean, you've got the cooler colors, so you're thematic.
Well, I have NX, so I'm better than your average person, I guess.
Just to quickly address the comment section
sure.
about server costs, have a even somewhat much if you have any player base at all, you can if you're a I guess server owner, run a server with incredibly low funds. If you have 5 people or 10 people playing your server, getting the most fantastic specs. You don't need a dedicated server. You don't need anything special. You can get a $20, $30 VPS, and that'll suffice. So again, in terms of funding, any server owner that begs for funding, usually is not doing so out of
necessity. It's a red flag because they just want more money.
Yeah, they're just doing it because they want more money.
Right.
For smaller servers, that's definitely the case. I could, for instance, I have a $20 VPS that I could throw up right now with a local host, and I could probably have anywhere from 50 to 100 players on it without running into issues.
100 might be pushing it, but definitely 50 to 70. Yeah.
Yeah, and currently there's Minecraft on it, so maybe more 30 to 50.
Shout out to Sconecraft.
Right, so
hop in that Discord if you guys want to play Minecraft with us.
Right, so essentially if you've ever played a server where the owner is we really need donations, unless there are legit 3 people playing, it's unlikely. Because as long as one donates $5, $10, if you're short $5, I mean really.
Yeah. I think there's what you're getting at is that there are really no public numbers disclosed of the main servers for how many players equals this much money. And the closest we can sort of come to for live servers that have decent player counts is you can go look at the MapleMS Discord. The MapleMS Discord has each person who's donated $5 or more listed as VIP. So you can add all of those together and then come up with a number, and then I'll hit you with this one. Is the vast majority of those players have donated $5 more than once, because the caveat or the advantage rather, of donating $5 on the server is GM buffs. The best way to play the server is to make multiple characters, because for leveling additional characters, there is sort of a link skill mechanic where you will get percentage all stat on your main character. So a vast majority of those players who are VIP have most likely gotten VIP on multiple other characters. You can start to see the number skyrocket for, okay, there are this many people playing, which is approximately 200 to 300 online. And yeah, it is pay to win, and pay to win can net more money than just cosmetic servers, but it's a close approximation where if you think about, the characters who have NX on servers that have low vote, or if you notice how many characters have donor NX and rankings, you can start formulate how much money servers are incoming, and then it's really, I'm never worried about server costs ever being a problem on any of the servers I play. And if you do see a server that is seriously concerned about paying for a VPS for a starting server, right, where they're just starting the project and it's in beta and they're doing it for less than 100 players, if they're asking for money to pay server fees, it should be a red flag, because it simply doesn't cost that much, and the person is most likely unemployed, just because the majority of employed people who are in first world countries can definitely afford VPSs.
Right. And but I will say there is one more caveat. I will say that server expenses are oftentimes a lot more than just of the VPS.
Mm-hmm.
So like advertising, I think like Maple Global spent like 10 or 20,000 just on advertising.
It was
insane.
A lot. They spent a lot on advertising. I don't recommend doing that. I think there was a certain amount where they stopped seeing benefits. Where
hold on, who spent how many thousand?
Maple Global
spent how much?
I think like 10 or 20,000, which is just disclosure Maple Beta never got. But yeah, on Facebook ads.
Jesus Christ. There's where Facebook Mountain
Facebook ad Mountain, the in sweep of players. But I
had no idea it was that much. Holy shit.
It was a lot.
MS, which they were ready to offer up like, was it $5,000 for a bug fix?
Oh yeah, on
like some servers, like if they like when you're, I'm pretty sure OSM as well. Like I'm sure they rake in like at least like 1,000 or 2,000 a month. Pretty sure.
What was your disclaimer about Maple Beta? I didn't hear.
Said Maple Beta was never like on Maple Global tier. I mean, on Maple Global's level of getting like $10,000-$20,000 to be able to spend on donations. Like that's like you have to be like one of those like mega servers like Legends. Or at the very least like.
I want to make a note here that we are speculating, right?
Yeah, these are all speculations.
Yeah, I can't speak for other servers.
Yeah, so we don't really know how much OSM makes, but it's most likely in the ballpark of covering server fees.
1 or 2K a month, I'd say.
Yeah. And
minimum.
It's the sort of the RNG Cosmetics being predatory hasn't been an idea just since like, oh, OSM did this, This is something that I've always kind of wanted to talk about because I've seen it in a variety of servers. Like Crusade had it on V92 with their chair system, where it was like $2 for a chair, but the pool was so wide and you could re-roll the same one over and over again. So if you were ever to try to get like a specific one, there's a lot of money.
Did they have lower percentages for certain chairs, or was it even for all of them, or is that not disclosed?
I was just about done with the server when those came before those came out. Sorry.
Okay.
So I'm not sure.
Okay.
But yeah.
Are there any cosmetics that you think Newbane? Sorry, did you have a comment on that?
Yeah, just like a closing thing. There are other expenses other than advertising for servers. Yeah. So Chris in the chat brought up a good one. Sometimes you can buy software, maybe like some forum software, some basically software licenses, like maybe like some packing software, Elk. You can pay for like additional services, and when a server does become like a mega server, like I think Maple Royals, I think they pay like an insane amount for their dedicated servers. But again, like they make an insane amount, so it balances out.
Yeah, it's sort of I work in IT professionally, and there will be businesses where they will literally just have second servers set up where, if one fails, there's just the other one that's exactly the same clone. It will just automatically kick in because having the 5 nines of uptime is more important to them for retaining players, and kind of like a business, you want to have it, and spending that extra money every month on things like that when your capital is that large really is not of concern, right?
Yeah, you have a lot of options when you have a lot of money.
And I think I find it a little funny with the software licenses, since we are in private servers. It's just like, just pirate it all, like some of the software, I'm sure some of it's not very easily piratable, and obviously you shouldn't be doing that for some stuff. Some things are definitely worth paying for,
and some things are just not that treasured, like 15-year-old children's video games. Oh,
yep.
It's not just that. It's also, I mean, you're potentially violating other laws, like. Example, like with private servers, I think it's somewhat of a legal gray area, since you're not. I don't know. You're not really software per se. Like, I don't know. It's like a different law. Whereas using.
It's definitely like more avoidable, right? Like let's say you are running a private server, and you get DMCA'd, you can just be like, all right, I'll shut down, and then it ends, right? Let's say you're using software illegally to run a private server, and then you make X amount of money, and you know, whoever's DMCAing you knows that you made this amount of money, and then that somehow ends up, you know, the software company that you're using, you know, somehow information gets leaked that you're pirating that software because one of your GM's mouth is just simply too fucking loud, and you know those GMs exist, I'm sure you know. And you know, let's say that company finds out somehow, then you're in serious legal trouble if you are one of those servers that has a lot of income.
All right.
So I could potentially see that.
If you guys don't have any more statements on the Monka S part of the podcast, I wanted to bring the conversation toward Newbane and Newbane's potential new project that he wanted to talk to you guys about.
Well, so the project is, it's nicknamed Bane Sauce. It's essentially a project at the moment, but it's basically a version 34 private server. And it's like a from scratch source written in C++. Much it. My like hopes for this for the server is to essentially make something better than Odin based, and at the same time implement sort of like new features that I wanted to implement in Maple Beta, which I never got the chance to.
I have a quick question for you. Would you ever consider possibly like releasing the Maple Beta source or possibly the Bane Sauce source as some sort of way for alternatives for people to open servers and stuff like that?
I mean, maybe like in the future, like if I was completely done with Maple Story dev. I also feel like to like
that was a little on the spot. I'm sorry about that. It's
well, right. I don't think it's like wise to contribute to just straight up like script kiddie servers, like Heaven MS, for example. Because you're going to have like rando people just opening up servers,
like we see now.
Oh, that's smart.
So
I've got some questions as far as
Sure.
the server side of things goes. What do you plan on changing about? Let me rephrase this. I don't know how those words came out so sloppy. You put out Maple Beta before, which was a throwback server, you know, like a very old school. What was it? A version 1, right?
Well,
version 40 beta. So
version 40 beta, so right before version 1. So what sort of things did you learn from those experiences that you want to correct with your new project? And where do you want to take it in as far as a different direction? Because you said there's things that you want to work on that you didn't have the chance to.
Right. So the first thing is with an Odin base, you're essentially put into the corner a lot of times where you could, in theory, just like rewrite just enormous chunks of the source code, turn it into not Odin that way. But a lot of times you find yourself like in a position where it's like kind of go with the general approach that Odin went with, you know?
It's you start trying to like destroy the wheel and then put the wheel on back better, but then the rest of it just like isn't of the same quality or working the same way, and it's just kind of like a jumbled mess of stuff you didn't make yourself. Right.
It's kind of like, actually, I like the wheel example. So it's like, imagine you're trying to build like a really good cart. An Odin base is kind of like the wheels and the axles. So in theory, you know, like redesign the wheel and like just like upgrade the wheel slightly, like tweak it here and there. You could, I mean, like you eventually start building things on top of the wheel, so like your cart. Like no matter how well you kind of built the cart, if it's built on a sort of like meh kind of base, see like artifacts of that base. So if you look at like Unity or Legends or OSM, they all run with like Odin base and even Maple Beta. So a lot of the bugs that you're seeing there are very common, like just ODNMS bugs, which like I was playing Unity recently. Like I just instantly saw that like this is Odin. So that's definitely something I would want to correct with Bane Sauce.
So if ODNMS had square wheels, you would like your new source to have circular wheels.
Circular wheels, right?
Right.
I think
so.
if you don't mind,
I know that this is more of a. Oh yeah, go ahead.
So back to sort of like the axle example, right? Where if you're adding a bunch of stuff on top of your cart, like you've got sweet cool boss fights, and you see that on the shelf, and you're in the supermarket, you toss that in your cart, and suddenly your source, due to Windows 10 memory leaks or your client just like the combination of them not really being able to handle all this cool new stuff all running at once, and the sort of core stability of the server isn't really up to snuff. When you go to be more progressive with your server and add new things, you can run into more trouble, I think is something that should probably be pointed out. Whereas if you're starting from scratch, you're sure that all of your work is stable, as long as you're a very good developer, and that any new additions and things that you add will coincide with your previous work in a way that you want it to.
Right, and a lot of bugs, like honestly, the biggest issue is just bugs. It's not necessarily things not working, because when you add new features, like you'll notice that things aren't working the way you want it to work, and if you start digging into why, like you'll find the problem, and you can do like sort of like spot repairs. But I really think sort of like for example, ODNMS has this nasty bug where if you send too many packets at once, you can actually crash like from the client side, because they send all their packets not just asynchronously, but they send their packets like concurrently. So you can actually like misorder some of the packets. So that's kind of interesting, and that can cause like people to crash.
So I think this sounds like good news to most people. This is more of the tech side of things. I know that
there's a lot of it. I don't want to bore people with it.
Yeah, yeah, not too much on the boring side of things, but there's a lot of people that are very savvy about private servers. Probably if you're here, you at least care about them somewhat. But for your casual or your average player that's coming in here listening and curious about Bane Sauce, the current working title for the project, what sort of gameplay are you expecting in it? I know that Maple Beta was pretty highly custom content as far as throwback servers go. Were you thinking about doing more of that, or did you want to stick with a little bit more of a GMS-like gameplay?
Okay, so for one thing that will definitely impact players from like the dev side will be the fact that the channel servers are going to be separate from each other, meaning I can host one channel on a VPS and then another channel on a VPS in like, I don't know, like Germany or something, right? So I know like a big issue for a lot of players is if they live from like sort of parts of the world, like out of the way from the VPS, like they'll have like ping problems and whatnot. So you can actually do this with ODNMS, but only with like classic ODNMS. So like anyone using MoopleDev with RMI removed, they can't do that anymore. But like this notion of just hosting channels on different machines, which is also something that Nexon does, is like really cool, because who lives in like Singapore and like just really gets horrible ping, like now you'll have an option of like a channel.
Say channel 3 is the Singapore channel, channel 1's the NA channel, as far as that goes. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, and that was something that I believe WillowMS stated that they were going to do as well. Maybe this is the sort of like the turning point for servers where this becomes a feature that will be highly contested and sought after. Is can all regions of the world sort of obtain reasonable ping to the server? And I think
that sounds like a great feature to implement. I do, before we get a little too sidetracked, I would want to go back to my question there and press you on it a little bit as far as the gameplay features go. I know you like I said, Maple Beta was pretty custom. There were a lot of GM hosted events. A lot of items that were unobtainable. Is that something that you want to do again, or do you want to be more, GMS like on this one?
More GMS like, I guess. In fact, towards the end of Maple Beta's life, I began doing that, strict rules of no custom item giveaways. Don't have an event every day essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. We really cut down on all of the just.
It was
instant gratification. Here's all this free shit. So definitely, none of that in us.
There's something that I feel like I'm holding back saying here, but I think I might as well, is I might have an apology for you, because very early on in the days where you guys were putting up that server, you were hiring your first GMs, which ended up being myself and Elemist. And Elemist had never been a GM before. And I feel like, and I don't know how much impact I had on this. Maybe I'm, being a little bit more hot-headed or big-headed than I mean to be. But I have a very rich history of being a GM on high-rate private servers where you would have multiple events every day. You would make custom items or not very rare items to give out as prizes, because that was just sort of how things went on high-rate servers, without really a care or thought for the people that were offline and it wasn't fair to them, or events were too often, or not in the right time zone. Really not caring that much about that was sort of the precedent that I think I might have accidentally set when I became a GM on your server, because that was something that I started doing almost immediately, hosting those events back to back, doing a lot of things that were not GMS like, and that was something that I really pushed for on that server. In retrospect, it seems to have really harmed things, because I think that I don't know if I would call it a tradition or precedent got passed down, and LMS continued, and then Danny came in and other people as well. And that kind of kept and stuck. And like I was saying, I don't know if this is me, something that you guys wanted from the beginning, but I do want to say sorry, because it seems to have really hurt the server.
God damn it, Malbec, you fucked it all up.
A learning process, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first. I did kind of work as a GM / developer a long time ago on a high rate V62 server, way before I even knew how to program. I was a legit script kiddie at the time, and it was honestly the same kind of feel. But this was the first sort of low rate server I've ever worked on or with, and learning process. We try different things, see what works, see what doesn't work, and the solution that to be really useful to kind of stop the event abuse essentially is to MG did, where we limited the reward pool to essentially that of, it was essentially almost 1-to-1 with what MG had, but GMs were only allowed to give away one, I made it a usable item, treasure chest, and it will give you a random item from that reward pool. The secret scroll reward pool, and that seemed to have really done the trick. Stop. At first, there was a little resistance. They're oh, we want our OP stuff, please. But I think people really, the change, and it was a good change.
Do you think the server is going to appeal to the Maple Beta players, because those players were used to that content? The new one that you're working on.
If you don't mind me interrupting, I have a point before this one.
Sure, go ahead.
As chief complainer over at Maple Beta, I'm sure Newbane has had times where he's really despised me for the dumb shit I would come in and say in Discord about how Maple Beta was being run, or what GMs were doing, or I remember initially the fucking yoink loot. And I've definitely done my fair share of complaining at a lot of servers, and Newbane server was definitely no exception to this.
Hold on a second. Hold on. Stone complaining about servers? Hold on a sec. Wait, that's a little. He created a whole damn podcast about the goddamn.
I made a podcast about complaining about servers. Look where I am now. Look, Mom, I'm on TV. No, but I think something important to note is with low rate servers, and this is, if I could better articulate it back then, I would. And it's the idea that events should be a good break from grinding, but they should never provide the opportunity to be more effective than grinding. Whatever you receive from the event, whatever scroll or item you get should be neat and should be cool or cosmetic, or it can sometimes be useful. But the idea that your time is more efficient during events is something I've always suggested that people shy away from, because you end up in these scenarios where I think you guys had a lot of 2x events as well, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, we cut down on that as well. But I think the biggest thing, it's not the biggest thing, but it's one of the huge changes, was I think I got rid of XP Gourd. I basically outlawed XP
the
Gourd
gourds.
events.
No,
the fucking
those
eggs.
Were so bad, dude.
The eggs.
The gourds.
Oh my god.
If anybody's not familiar, basically on Maple Beta they would spawn EXP gourds, and basically an egg that everybody would come and attack. It would have a whole bunch of HP, and then at the end, anybody who touched the egg that was being hit, or the gourd rather, would get this absorbent amount of EXP, and it would be way better to leave your grinding map. I mean, not unreal better experience. Leveling up multiple times in one. It was a bad idea all around.
Well, the multiple times was that's when one of my GMs messed up and spawned an egg with one extra 0, Right. But
I remember that. That was fucking absurd. I think
all the offline players getting fucking livid about
the online players, the highest levels on the server received, I think it was 3 to 4 levels from the EXP gourd.
Just 1 digit, man.
Just to quickly answer what Hantail said about dispose, if a server has dispose and you actually have to use dispose very frequently, then that's signs of a shit server. But dispose is very useful. Dispose is very useful in certain situations, because especially if you have non-programmers writing NPC scripts or something.
Oof.
Okay, well that's just you.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Guys, no beef in chat. Stop calling. let's not be mean, right? That's
what I'm saying. If an NPC script is written by someone who's not the main developer, because that's how you kind of offload. I get what you're saying. Yes, fixing issues where you're required to dispose is simple, but sometimes they can slip through the cracks, and it's just nicer to have an alternative with a command than to relog, for example.
Right. I think the big thing, if I'm also a big proponent of dispose not existing, just because I hate player commands in general. In my brain, I hate the fact that they exist at all. It's not as much the fact that dispose has its uses, and it's even other commands at exp, how much exp am I getting per hour? I feel like it's stuff that shouldn't exist, and I just put dispose in the same bucket. But I think basically what you're kind of trying to say is, if you're running an effective, if you are running a server, sometimes there's just bigger fish to fry. If you are the most experienced developer and other tasks are offloaded, sometimes, let's say for instance, WZ editing is often offloaded to people who aren't the core main developers, and sometimes there's WZ issues, but those just get fixed later because there's bigger fish to fry, right? Where whoever's doing the WZ, just if an instance happens where you have to dispose, just report it to the bugs section, and then whoever's overseeing as the administrator says to whoever does the scripts, hey, try to fix this one, right? I think the problem with Dispose, mainly that I have with it, is it doesn't force users to report bugs. Where if you have to relog, that tells the player, okay, I was just interrupted. My day-to-day was interrupted by this feature, and this feature needs to be fixed because the server I play on, I shouldn't have to be relogging, and that user is 10 times more likely to report that bug. Or if the person is a private server veteran and they're just like, Dispose, and they just keep going with their day, pretend like it never happened, right? And I don't think that creates I don't think that's the path to a great server, right? And maybe what Chris is saying is something that logs when Dispose is used, and then you can sift through it and sort of find it. But just from a player perspective, it's like, if Dispose is available to me, I'm going to be lazy as fuck. There's no way I'm going to the forums. There's no way I'm reporting that X NPC I touched before needing to Dispose is broken. Some players don't even realize that that's what's going on, right? Where they run into a problem and a GM tells them, well, did you try disposing? And the player's like, oh, no, I didn't try that. And then they type @dispose and they're like, oh, it's fixed now, I guess. That player doesn't realize what's going on or
They're
why Dispose works.
They've never disposed before.
Yeah, well, they're not veterans. They don't understand sort of what's behind the scenes or what needs to be reported, if at all, right? When they're disposing, and maybe they're just like, I disposed, and maybe this is just a private server thing, and it kind of rubs me the wrong way a little bit. And I'm not saying Dispose is inherently bad, but I think it being, just kind of what this podcast is for is to create better servers, or call it out when we see it.
Yep.
If people are regularly disposing and nothing's being done about it, the players aren't doing anything about it, logs aren't being checked, or sort of an effort's not being made. I'm not saying that you don't make an effort or that an effort wasn't made on Maple Beta, because I remember one time I was pissed about it and you were like, I'm gonna go fucking fix it right now. And I was like,
if a problem is really, if a lot of people are having a problem with something that,
Okay, so go ahead. I didn't hear you. Go ahead.
Actually, just before we leave player commands, I did actually want to add at least one player command, which is maybe like at collapse or something. Which, so how when you drop or sell a bunch of things from your inventory, you have all of these pockets in your inventory.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the inventory sort thing.
Ooh, that
it won't
sounds
necessarily.
fun.
Right, I was actually thinking that would be the second one. So one to sort and one to just collapse, like to move everything up and fill all of the slots.
Oh, okay.
That
sounds fun. Hey, I'd like that. Speaking
Huge
of
quality
features
of
that you want, huge quality of life. I'd love something like that. Speaking of features and things that you'd be adding to the game, I feel like as a potential player of your server, I would be doing a disservice if I didn't ask you a few questions about what we might be able to expect, or anybody else in the chat that's thinking about playing your server.
Well,
I don't know how early you are in development, so I'm not too sure what questions to ask about. How far along are you, or is it just an idea at this point?
Well, at the moment, you can get in game. You can monsters, get XP. I recently.
Okay.
So
it's
pretty
functional.
early.
It's really early, honestly. The login server is pretty much finished.
So at this point, you're just doing building blocks, of the base foundation, and you haven't really focused your ideas on the actual gameplay itself. Is what I'm getting from it.
It's actually really
Work in progress.
Yeah,
sort
work in
of thing,
progress, exactly.
Where once it's done, we'll figure out what the fuck we're doing with it.
Sure. Well, personally,
I have ideas of where I want to go.
Yeah, but
but
but not
do you mind
like
sharing those
specifics.
ideas? Because I'm curious. I mean, if I can fanboy a little bit here, I think at the moment, Newbane2. I'd almost called you a different name. I think you're probably my favorite developer in the community. I mean, you seem to be the kind of person I'm not trying to flatter you or anything, make you blush, but I mean, you're pretty sexy too. You seem to be a player who's willing, or not a player, a developer who's willing to learn and doesn't take mistakes as personal attacks, and is willing to, well, I say learn from mistakes. You know, like you said earlier, you know, your background, similar to mine, was to be a GM on on a high rate private server back in the day. That was also my experience, and you know what we brought to, or mostly you, not me, bringing that experience to Maple Beta. You know, you were willing to learn from the mistakes of having high rate content and low rate gameplay, and that's something that a lot of people, you know, they don't take in stride. They would take it personally that their server had failed, and you don't see it that way. You see it as a learning process. And that's something that I find very exciting in a developer, because there's a lot of developers that are very authoritarian when it comes to private servers, where they have this grand vision in mind of what they want to create, and they just want to put up this server that doesn't appeal to a lot of people because it's their little child, and if anybody criticizes their child that they've coded for the past couple months, then they start getting angry, or they get a little bit too like Chris is saying, a little bit megalomaniac about their features, and it hurts the server ultimately. And you're somebody that I've noticed doesn't actually do that and is willing to learn and code. You're a fantastic coder on top of it. So thank you for the services that you've done to the community. That said, I'm pretty excited about your private server. So as soon as you're able to release a little bit of information, maybe we can have you back on at some point to talk about your features as well. I mean, that's one that, hey guys in chat, don't sleep on Bane sauce, because I think it might be pretty good.
No sleeping.
Yeah. Again, when it starts getting closer to the more finalized version, like at the moment it's not even an alpha yet. Like,
right.
Like you can get in, you can kill some mobs, but a lot of stuff is missing.
So what you're saying is there's no release date yet?
So it's not.
No,
at the moment. Can we expect Bane sauce by 2022?
Most definitely, yeah.
2019, 2020.
Wait, so
I think
Unity
maybe 2019. It really depends, because like I work in bursts, so like anyone. So I have like a little development Discord where like I post progress.
Mm-hmm.
But only at the moment. But
is that a private one or something you want to release to the chat?
It's private for now.
Okay,
makes sense.
Yeah. Progress videos, because like at the end of the day, you know, Maple Dev is fun for me. It's just like something I do like because I enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy, you know, like creating sort of like spaces for people to just like have fun and enjoy, like private servers basically.
It's a fantastic quality to have in a developer, and I should say, in an ocean of developers that are greedy for money and they don't really even like MapleStory to begin with. It's a breath of fresh air to hear something like that.
Yeah, and speaking back to the sort of not taking, well, it's weird because there's like a lot of startup servers where there's people who sort of have these ideas, and there's only been a couple of like when I start to partake in conversations about betas and alphas, which I don't do too much anymore. I guess now that I've become wiser, I guess, supposedly, where, you know, I'm getting old, right? I stopped prowling G-Top and then going into every Discord and being like, all right, what's the features, right? Because
soon you'll be as jaded as I am, man. You're getting there.
It just became a waste of time, right? And a lot of them just aren't decided yet, and they're just kind of waiting for people to tell them what to put in the server. And it's weird to me because it's like, I feel like every server, even if your ideas like aren't that great, you should have something, right? Even if that something is wrong, if you are wrong, then you should be willing to adapt and change. And there's only been a couple, like maybe a handful of instances where I go to these new servers and I say, you know what I think about that feature? I think it sucks. And, you know, sometimes they'll be like, well, that's just, you know, and I'll list why it sucks. And, you know, sometimes they'll be like, okay, what do you think is a better way of implementing this? Or do you think it should not be implemented at all? Or what would be better than this? And that only happens a couple of times, right? Where people are willing to take in constructive and sometimes not even constructive criticism, where I remember there was one instance where this one server had, I believe it was some sort of pay-to-win party buff, where they claimed it wasn't paying to win because you were partying, so everyone was winning. And it was like, this doesn't... and, you know, thinking back on it, I felt really mean because, you know, I just went into Discord and I was like, wow, this is the dumbest shit I've read all week. And they seemed a little perturbed, and I felt bad after. And, you know, they were like, you know, please tell us, you know, why you think this. And they just genuinely did not understand. And then, you know, that's when I feel bad. And then they were willing to adapt and change. And now I don't know what they're doing now. I don't know. It's not top 10 on G-Top, somewhere below it somewhere.
By any chance, do you go into these DMs to the administrators like coming in hot? You're like, hey man,
I don't look.
Your features fucking suck.
I don't go into DMs. I go into general chat.
Oh, I thought you were direct messaging him.
No, it's always general
you know what?
chat.
Honestly, I had this conception of you, Scone, that you were going around to administrators, DMing them, going, hey bitch, I don't like your fucking server. I was just on your G-Top and it says that you have this pay to win. It says that your NX Cosmetics are behind an RNG paywall, and I ain't having that shit, man. I'm a gambling addict, and
maybe I am. Maybe I'm trying to reform, and all these private servers are trying to bring the gambling addict out of me, and, you know, I've got to push it away.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. But I also understand, like, it's double. It's sort of like double-edged sword.
Mm-hmm.
To be open to criticism and just like hearing out like people's ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, though, you have to be careful because that like the number one thing to like any successful content or like update is to be consistent with your decision. Like.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You can't flip-flop too much.
Mm-mm.
You know, like if today's, you know, you have a bunch of people like, oh, we want higher mob rates, and it's like I just released an update which changed okay, like this is like a real example. So before we had like some janky mob spawns on Maple beta.
I remember this.
Which is a GMS. It's a GMS like spawns, and it was just like an insane drop. Like it you know, like the spawn rates dropped by like 60%, and then people are like, oh no, we want higher spawn rates, and then we have to like find a compromise. I'm not sure where I was going with this. I think it was that
it's like it's I think the important thing is listening and then critically evaluating and then making consistent decisions is sort of what you're getting at, where not always, and this sort of further goes into maybe something we could do an entire episode honestly on so if you were to start a server, what the vocal minority looks like and who they are. And, you know, I could even name some specifically because I've been doing it too long, right? Where there are instances where people will find fresh servers or servers with not very many people because they realize that their word has more power in servers with less people or servers that are just starting to bring across these ideas that just aren't good, right? And people who sometimes run an admin servers will sort of, you know, make small polls in the beginning maybe, or, you know, these people will have leverage over decisions that are made because they aren't being critically thought about to the extent that they should be. And
that's a great point.
Probably save that for a later episode. And
something similar happened with Unity where like
a lot of people, I think it's happening right now at Unity, for example, even though their beta and Discord is larger and than most scenarios of which I'm talking about, the amount of people that are actively participating in discussion on forums and stuff like that will be a small percentage of people who are actually playing on launch. Those people don't actually represent a majority. Now, are some of their ideas aligned with what the majority is? Sure. should polls be taken? I think polls are like the largest offender of decision making when it comes to servers, just because the amount of sample sizing you're getting isn't even what the United States government gets. Like half of people vote in elections, and that's like the major elections, and then even less vote on town and city and stuff like that. But even those voting percentages are way higher than the amount of people voting on your forum post compared to what your potential online count is in the future.
That's a great point, dude. That's something, honestly, I think we could do a whole podcast about.
Oh, yeah. It's maybe down the line, because I think it's super interesting, because, and I think that's why it's important to have those sort of core values, right? So that you can adhere to, despite the polls or what people are saying, that you can kind of bend your will to.
Like, at least from my personal experience, polls never really worked with Maple Beta, because I don't know if people were like double voting, or I don't know what they were doing, but like the polls, either like just like not enough people would vote, or like the results would be all like wonky, and then like there are times where like the results are like 50-50, and it's like, what do you do then?
I'm gonna agree with Hontail in chat here. Players are stupid.
That's true. This is a conversation we've had before, Scone.
They are just dumb. Like, this is gonna sound mean, but you know, I'm not staff anywhere right now. Players are just in general just dumb as fuck. If like I don't know what percentage of them is. Maybe it's a local minority, but it's just I don't even know, dude. It's crazy. But yeah, that's a topic for another time, and I think we've just about ran out of. We're definitely sort of tangenting now. Is there any sort of closing thoughts that any of you want to have on what was talked about today before we, expose all of our content for future episodes, during this one?
So I wanted to just mention, like, where I think the future of Maple Dev is going.
Yeah, go for it.
Noticing in terms of like actual developers, like what they're doing, in the Maple community is a lot of sort of like memory editing, and a lot of like for example, those HD clients, and like what Unity has with like the final attack toggle, and like the whatever, all that stuff, all the assembly edits, or whatever. That's sort of like the future of Maple Dev, where like we've reached a point where just reverse engineering the game and just getting it to work and be like GMS like done by several people, and anything else, like we even had some of that with like Maple Beta, like how I implemented the chairs. Like chairs don't exist in V40 beta, but with like client editing, it's possible. Maple Global also did some stuff with that, and now it's even more so with like Unity. You have like, and then like the HD client was something that Crusade was like pioneering at the time. It's like, oh, look at us, we have the HD client.
I think,
but Unity has it, OSM has it now.
It's really exciting.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
And
I mean, how many times can you reinvent the game where you actually just need to start tweaking, some peripheral things and not the game itself?
Yeah, and I think here's one of the like less exciting to most people aspects, but here's the most exciting aspect for me when it comes to I think client developers becoming more popular, or there's more of them, or there's seemingly more of them, or maybe I haven't been in the scene long enough, but there
are more resources for them, honestly, and I think that's pretty much it. Like, they're just more resources, more mentors, I guess, disclosing sort of like trade secrets. Like, it's definitely becoming, I think, more like common and popular.
Because with Windows 10 being forever updating, month after month there's new Windows 10 updates, and I've heard complaints from server administrators that there are only specific issues that happen to Windows 10 users. And with Windows 7 going out of support within the next couple of years, we are looking at a situation where if you don't have a client developer, there's going to be a large percent of your population, and MapleMS is definitely experiencing this, where you will have to design boss runs around people who have specific software and hardware on their computer to where they won't GFX or crash. And
that sounds rough.
It is rough, and this happens on even more major servers like Royals and Legends. Sorry to throw Kimmy under the bus, where if you are running Windows 10, the chance of you having to refresh your graphics or GFX during a boss run so that you don't DC is very high. And I really want to see the bar raised. I want to see GTOP advertisements that say no GFXing. I want to see that, because this is going to become more apparent later. This is it's fairly easy to see that every time as time goes on, that this problem is going to become more apparent, and it's going to be more of a crucial feature to where instead of people advertising, oh, we have great uptime, or the server doesn't crash very often, there aren't very many restarts, or we've been online for this long, suddenly it's going to go from widescreen support. Everyone's going to think that's cool, but I think the next phase of cool, innovative features won't even be something sparkly and shiny, but it will just be core functionality.
Oh yeah, core functionality. Oh my gosh,
I'd come for some core functionality right about now.
I mean, it sounds boring as fuck. It's not like, oh, we have this amazing feature, we have this, and this in game. Your gameplay is going to be like this. At this point, everybody's a veteran on the game. We're all kind of talking and we're all circle jerking the same idea here that the game can. You can only do so much with MapleStory, and I think pretty much everything has been done except for, like you said, the fundamentals of, getting an HD client, having some reverse engineered chairs, something like that. A server that has more features that are friendlier to the player and built for modern times, and not necessarily a replication of a game from 2003. I think those are going to be the things that developers hopefully are going to be developing in the future, and the community leans toward. I don't know what the community is going to feel like, if there's just, always going to be set in their ways of wanting, I want GMS like bar none, which is, the general consensus in a lot of places, I think, unfortunately.
I think it's moving more towards GMS, but edited. I think the sort of Crusade was the first server to really, Crusade's a first for a lot of things. They did a lot of stuff wrong with V92, but they did a lot of weird stuff right with V92 that actually got me to play it, right?
Yeah.
Because players can't, my friends and other players were like, you got to try Crusade. There's no leech, there's no 92. Wash, right? And I was like, you know what? All right, I'll give it a try. And then I was met with other features that I really didn't like, which were like the symbiotic leeching, and then the AFK meta with the points and shit like that. And I hated that, but I think sort of where it's moving and is sort of kind of, not to shill, but sort of the direction Unity is going, where it's how can we push the boundary for, the same kind of gameplay, but fixing major grievances that people have with the current existing gameplay. I think it's going to be, I think OSM's probably going to be OSM and maybe Bane Sauce might be the last iterations of, we're trying to be extremely vanilla, right? Where I think it's going to be GMS edited. I think that's going to be the path if I had to.
Well, Maple Beta was GMS edited.
Yeah.
So and that's, again, Bane Sauce will be different from Maple Beta in like several ways. It's always the same concept. Like I'm not a believer in the whole like vanilla progressive sort of Maple, where version 1 and you just like artificially go up to your like designated version, and like honestly,
I always thought that was really gimmicky.
I like it,
and it's like it's unsustainable in the sense of like any new players you get are going to join the server of like hype, essentially, like unless just join at the start and just stay with your server just like forever. Like that's the only like way that makes any sense. And then even then, like you still eventually hit like this plateau of like actually being progressive. The only servers where, in my opinion, it makes sense to be progressive are servers like what's that, like V2 whatever server? Not Acacia.
Ares. V2. Ares.
100 something.
202.
Yeah. You're talking about Ares, I think.
Ares. Yeah.
I don't know. I disagree because essentially, if you look at it from the perspective of Maple weapons, when you implement Maple weapons back in the day in GMS and on private servers as anniversary events, it adds a level of replayability for existing players, and it also offers a decent catch-up mechanic for new players. And I think the progressive server does the same thing, and I think OSM is banking on it, right? Where when you release a patch that has content that people want, they will be able to progress faster through the game, and they will feel like their time is more or less being better spent than if they spent grinding it on launch if they're not a ranking racer. Where if you start at OSM Looty patch, right, you'll get kind of some of the best pre V39 maps to train at. You'll get Teddies, you'll get what have you, LPQ, and your leveling will be smoother than just straight up Victoria Island. And adding replayability to the game and offering catch-up mechanics to new players is how MMOs work at large, right? Where we have, if you look at current MapleStory, it doesn't take forever to get to level 200 because they need to catch players up, but there's, boss progression after that. So, World of Warcraft does the same thing. So I don't think it's like this inherently bad idea to have your server be progressive. I just think the execution needs to be in line with your player base. I think is the main thing. It's like your execution just has to be really good for it to be rampantly successful.
What I would say about that though is it doesn't make it inherently bad to have progressive servers, but there are very big downsides. The ones that I was just saying. But the thing about it is that you don't have to have a progressive server to have those features. Like the Maple items, for example, there'd be a way to responsibly implement some catch-up features on any private server, not necessarily one that's just progressive.
Mm-hmm. And you're right. There are ways to add replayability, but this is just the easiest one. Well, I say easy, but depending on how you're doing it, sometimes it's not easy.
Right.
But the point where you end up at the end and now you're like, what now? Well, if you start at the end, you're still at the same point.
Right.
But then you can sort of add like whatever content you're going to add anyways.
Yeah.
Implying it's kind of like old school RuneScape, which is also where, again, OSM got their name from and everything. It's because I had like long conversations with ASDF about
naming
essentially just implementing old school RuneScape tier content in MapleStory, and that's I'm pretty sure that's where he got the name from.
Something funny that now that we're back on that topic again, osmcast is actually the name of a different podcast.
Really?
There's literally it's just about video games, dude. It's just osmcast, and it's just about your run-of-the-mill video games, fucking Minecraft, Fortnite, whatever.
Do you know what it stands for? I'm curious.
I do not.
I know that they have the same one.
I know that OSM's videos started getting marked as them playing the game Online Soccer Manager, which I think is fucking hilarious, dude. That is just the funniest shit. The fact that you're like a
right, exactly.
A MapleStory video and it's getting fucking flagged as Online Soccer Manager kills me.
That's kind of funny, to be honest.
All right.
I mean, I don't think there's too much more that I wanted to say about those two topics that we talked about, whether it's the RNG Cosmetics or the OSM rebuttal. But I do think, we hit on a lot of major topics that we did want to, as well as some ones that we didn't plan on as well. I want to say thank you to Newbane for showing up here and, having your input, I think, has been extremely valuable. Something that, giving us an angle that we wouldn't have otherwise had. So thank you so much for coming on.
And
that was fun. Not a problem.
Yeah, and we definitely want, like we said, we apologize for pushing the date back, but I definitely think that the content with guests is just way better than just with me and Malbec. Not to downplay Malbec and I know we're both great, and we're the best. We're the best MapleStory podcast out there. Sorry.
Well, Zero. I mean, We could definitely have an entertaining podcast for you guys with just Scone and I, and we'd be able to have a good time. But what we want, we go back to our core focus for the podcast is we just want to make private servers better, and by doing shows with guests and having people that come in with new input and angles that aren't just the two of us talking in circles. We're two people with two opinions, but if we can bring in other opinions and other views, I think it just makes the show that much better.
We'd like to thank you all for watching today, and if you guys have any questions for me, Malbec, Newbane, feel free to fire them off in chat, or anything that we talked about today, we can answer some rounds of questions. Or if you have no questions, just type no, and then go to bed or whatever.
Again, apologies to any of the EU. Am extremely grateful to you if you stuck through the entire show. If you're watching the VOD or the YouTube video a little bit later on, thank you so much, guys. We're sorry that we weren't able to provide a live show for you guys, unless you're up in the middle of the night right now. Thank you to the EU players.
Yeah,
the
EU listeners are definitely probably sleeping, but alrighty. So, are there any questions? 5:37. Damn.
Keep in mind, we do have two people here that are currently in development of their own servers. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge to JQMS.
I am not in development of anything other than Sconecraft, which is my...
Sconecraft, by the way. Is that a sub-only server? Are you doing sub-only on that?
I'm thinking about whitelisting some outstanding individuals that might not be subbed.
You know what? I made
Sconecraft doesn't pay for itself. I got server fees. I've got a family to feed, bro. Sconecraft
suggested an interesting meme server. I was joking, but at the same time, it would be kind of cool. Maybe like a server based around a specific boss. So
one specific boss,
like ZachMMS.
Maybe right, but I suggested Von Leon MS.
Okay.
Beat Von Leon. That could be a broader sort of concept, like just a server where how they had PvP servers, or they have them for World of Warcraft, where you create a character and you could just choose your PvP gear and you can just go PvP.
Mm-hmm.
So something similar where you can log in, choose some gear, or you're given some gear or something, and then you can just fight random bosses, and that's the whole game.
That would be pretty cool. If you could implement it in a fun way. My only concern for servers like that or niche ideas is they are never successful.
Yeah,
there's never enough people. So I always feel concerned about the developers spending their time on that, other than something that might actually be productive.
Well,
maybe.
But not to shoot down any ideas or anything. The cold reality is people don't really play memes or seriously anyway.
That reminds me of Malbec. We're gonna have to sit down and play Maple Art Online. At some point.
Yeah, he's convinced that this is something Winnet enjoys.
It's something that you can tell a lot of work's been put in, and it's a different experience. It's not MapleStory, but it is.
It's like a regular game. You just play through it once, It's not something designed to just keep playing.
So in response to Naturalina in the chat, as long as you're having fun making it, who cares? 100% valid point. It's as far as the developer goes. It's very selfish of me to say that. Well, it's selfish of me to say it. I'm just thinking from a community-wide perspective. If there's only a handful of competent developers in the community, and one of them is having a great time by themselves coding something, it's can you stop playing by yourself and come over here and play with us? Because you're really valuable.
Clearly, when you happen is all capable developers have to join OSM.
Agreed. If you are a competent developer, we are currently advertising for the OSM staff team. Please DM them your application. They need your assistance.
Yeah.
They need to delete more stuff, and then add other stuff.
Hey, Newbane, in your professional opinion, what's your forecast for OSM? Where do you see them, in the coming months?
I think that unless ASDF does something really stupid, I think they'll continue to be fairly successful, honestly.
Yeah, ASDF should hire Roar.
I think ASDF should also hire Roar. I heard Roar really turned things around at TOV, and I think he'd be a great addition to the staff team. I personally see players going up after Ludi, and then past Ludi. I don't know.
They don't have Ludi yet?
No.
No.
So I think part of me wants the meme to continue where it's like MG never gets looty, because that meme's a good one, right? And this is kind of like the continuation a little bit, like MG season 2 or season.
I mean, what are we
3
at now?
or
Wait,
season
Maple
4.
Beta had.
Well, Maple Beta had looty, but I'm not sure.
Maple Beta.
I don't know if that. Well, it's not, Maple Beta is like.
It's kind of a fringe thing.
It was before MG, so it doesn't count.
See, Maple Beta is a server
Doesn't
that
count
everyone
as the
slept on
seasons.
until it was too late.
Yeah.
Until it was too late. That's true. Hey, you know what? Not me, man. I was the
Dude, the
GM app. I saw your potential from the beginning, and I wanted to be on board. I wasn't a GM on a private server for 4 years. Even though I was active during that time, I had never seen a private server until I saw a Maple Beta that I was like, you know what? This is something that's worth my time. So, you know what? I didn't sleep on you, but a lot of people did, to be
immediately after the big egg, that was when I started sleeping on Maple
Honestly, I don't blame you.
All right. I think this might be a good time to cut it.
I was woke. Yeah. I was woke on Maple Beta, and then egg came, and then I was asleep.
Oh my god, guys.
Team quit.
Hey guys, everybody who's watching right now, thank you so much. And anybody who's watching the video a little bit later on, thank you as well. Scone, do you want to give us just a little bit of information about the future podcast that we have in mind? Just a little bit of a
sneaker
roadmap for us.
Sneaky sneak peek into the future of PodcastMS.
Sure.
I think we have the guest nailed down, but
okay.
I don't want to reveal that. It's
no.
most likely just because I want to keep it secret. But the topic is most likely going to be starting a server and advertising and what we think the best mediums for advertising are, how it's been done, who's ahead of the game. If you're starting a server, are these boxes you should be checking? Are they worth your time and stuff like that? So I think it'll be a good one. The guest will be very entertaining, I think. And we'll add a lot to the situation if we do get the guest on there.
I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great time. We unfortunately don't have an ETA for when it's going to be. We like to do them on Fridays. So it'll just have to depend on when the guest is available. And
yeah, the guest is Arna, obviously, because Arna has the best advertising campaign out of anyone I know. All right, so that's going to be all for us. Make sure to
if you do have Arna on, I think he's a pretty good developer, so you can.
Maybe I'll have Arna on for when it comes.
Insight.
Yeah, if there's a episode that would feature things like how to start up a Minecraft server, I would definitely have Arna on there. Make sure to follow. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube. Make sure to follow Malbec's channel. Make sure to join us on Discord. This is my Discord personally. If you go in there and ask for Malbec's Discord, I'll give it to you. I don't know if
or
he
you
has
can
his
just
link.
go to my channel.
Oh yeah,
yeah, find it in there.
Yeah, click on Malbec's name. His channel has his Discord, and that'll be all. Thank you for watching. Have a great night.